Blog Talk Radio.
Yes. Shalom, Habarim, Erev Tov. Good evening, right here. Ministry Monday, the Monday podcast, second day of the Shabua here. Here we're beginning a new book here, Chazak. Be strong, Chazak. We need Chazek. And make I and I strengthen one another, make we be encouraged here, picking up with a new book here, the fifth book of Moshe, the Hebrew book that's known as Devarim, the words, Devarim, called Deuteronomy, repetition of the law. In the Hebrew, it's known as the Mishnah HaTorah. In the Torah itself, in the Hebrew, the Mishnah, the repetition of the law. But here for the second day of the 7 days, right here for the first working day for many. Blessings and grace, blessedness and grace. Yes, Yeshua Shalom, right here. Here's what it said from Mondays to Fridays on the liturgy.
Andenia. Kasenyo iska arb balutak enoch zawater yemibal. Said on the days from Monday to Friday. Salam lanchi hun inatachin kavrit beta Christian. Gedaochish lepazion inqu yeteget unacho. Salam lanchi hun inatachin kavrit Beta Christian. Peace be to you, our mother, O honorable church. Thy walls are embroidered with topaz. Peace, salam, shalom be to thee, our mother, O honorable church.
As the word says, thou shalt reverence or fear thy mother and thy father in Leviticus. As we have the law, 10 words, which says, thou shalt honor thy father and thy mother. Yeshua says that wisdom, she is justified by all of her children. So here, honor the father and the mother. Reverencing, fearing the mother, respecting the mother and the father, priestly right here, naturalite. There's a picture there.
They have a picture of His Majesty Rasta. Yes, sir, Jalis. And they have a picture of His Majesty Dread. Yes, sir, Giles Vizinai. And they have a picture of His Majesty Rassis. Yes, sir. wall, Rastafari sits upon his throne. Sits upon the seat of justice, with the red, gold, and green wrapped around him, oh yeah. Sits upon the seat of justice, defending the poor and the weak and the fatherless. In my house, there's a picture on the wall, Rastafari sits upon his throne. In my house, there's a picture on the wall, Rastafari sits upon his throne. Shall rule at all nations on the earth. Oh yeah, the root of David, the light of this world. Oh yeah, his eyes is red as fire. My picture ain't no liar, because the whole world see I know Rasta live forevermore. In my house, there's a picture on the wall, Rastafari sits upon his throne. In my house, there's a picture on the wall, Rastafari sits upon his throne. In my house, there's a picture on the wall, Rastafari sits upon his throne. In my house, there's a picture on the wall, Rastafari sits upon his throne. In my house, there's a picture on the wall. Yeah. In my house, there's a picture on the wall. Rastafari sits upon his throne. Rasta live, Rasta live, Rasta live forevermore. Rasta live, Rasta live, Rasta live forevermore. Rasta live, Rasta live, Rasta live forevermore.
Naturalites, picture that. Can you see the handwriting on the wall, the picture painting on the wall? Naturalites right there, picture on the wall, so stands the theme of the bait, the Hebrew letter, second letter, bait. Right? Some say bayit, in the ancient bayit, saying it full, and the contracted bait, the beta Israel, the beta Rastafari, the house, and his house, here. Your pole. Your house. Abba.
Your love is a light for eyes. Realize that so much when I first met you. That was some time ago. Then I couldn't resist. No, close to you. Oh yes, right from the start.
Too much what to say. 'Cause at the close of the day, they'll be so far away. But then I know one thing for certain. 'Cause at the closing of the, oh, yes, I know one thing for certain. You'll be there, you'll be there. It was you that raised the flag above my head. Once when I was in a little situation, came with a solution. Was the revelation, triumphant call of triumphant trumpet. I wanna live in your house. Wanna live in your house. I wanna live in my home. The Lion of Judah shall break every chain. The Lion of Judah shall break every chain. Lion of Judah shall break every chain. Give us some victory again and again. The conquering lion shall break every chain. The conquering lion shall break every chain. The conquering lion shall break every chain. Give us some victory again and again. The conquering lion shall break every chain. The conquering lion shall break every chain. The conquering lion shall break every chain. Give us some victory again and again.
Yes, I. Victory. Yeshua, B'Shem Yeshua, in the name of Yeshua, name of salvation, name of victory, guidance and protection. Jah guide, Jah protect. Sister Aisha, right here. Hallelujah.
The Lion of Judah shall break every chain and give I a victory again and again. Jehovah. The Lion of Judah shall break every chain and give I a victory again and again. Jehovah. Jehovah. Jah protect, from the evil forces around me. They're around me, totally unseen, but they're around me. When I'm in pain, I call on Jah, call on Jah. When I need protection, I call on Jah, call on Jah. Hey, they rise up against I. You want to possess I, but you know it could never be so. I want the world to know how much I love you so. Rasta, oh, Rasta, oh, yes it is. Lassie Ali, yes it is. Protect us, guide and protect, protect us. Jah protect us from the evil forces around me. They're around me, totally unseen, but they're around me.
Yahweh, guide and protect I, words of I, mouth, meditation of I, hearts, being humbly acceptable in his sight. So the words. So let's create a wave right here. Chant a psalm. The evening psalm here for the second day, Psalm 48, words, sound, and power. So here within the wave of life, a positive vibration. Yes, I, Rastafari, chant the psalm, word, sound, and power.
Psalm 48. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth, is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. God is known in her palaces for a refuge, for lo, the kings were assembled. They passed by together. They saw it, and so they marveled. They were troubled and hasted away. Fear took hold upon them there, and pain as of a woman in travail. Thou breakest the ships of Tarshish with an east wind. As we have heard, so have we seen in the city of the Lord of hosts, in the city of our God. God will establish it forever. Selah. We have thought of thy loving kindness, O God, in the midst of thy temple. According to thy name, O God, so is thy praise unto the ends of the earth. Thy right hand is full of righteousness. Let Mount Zion rejoice. Let the daughters of Judah be glad because of thy judgments. Walk about Zion, and go round about her. Tell the towers thereof. Mark ye well her bulwarks. Consider her palaces, that ye may tell it to the generation following. For this God is our God forever and ever. He will be our guide forever, 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 forever.
Be and I guide, he who be, we be, Yahweh, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu, Baruch Hashem, the Holy One, blessed be he, blessed be the name, he who be, we be, I and I guide, guidance and protection here, Desiree with Zion, yes, I.
Oli, 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 oli. Oli, 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 oli. Oli, oli, oli. Zion, 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 me kind of bright shall inherit upon the most holy day. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, redeeming souls from the power of the grave. No cutting of death, only a new road to pay. Zion, 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 Black man origination, original man, let go and we serve and declare the glory, and all their handiwork. Beyond today's feet is uttered, there's no place their voices are not heard. No place their voices are not heard. Mama, Zion, 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 your Levi's, high, 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 high. God was glorious light, majestic height.
Yes. Zion, Sion, Sister Desiree right there. Zion. Just because you don't see them doesn't mean they don't exist. You see your life? I mean, you see the manifestation of your life. You know, the manifestation, what you do with that life, but the essence. How about the breath? Do you see the breath? You feel it? You perceive it? Yes. Going to ride up right here. Since we have the fifth book here before us, the Barim, the words. These are the words. But one more Zion tune right here. Haven't heard from St. Garnet in a moment on this tune right here on the podcast, the broadcast right here on the ear and the iris. Zion in a vision. Right? Without a vision, the people perish. So get a good vision. Picture this. Yes, writing on the wall.
Oh, I see. And I saw, yeah. I saw giants in a vision. They will tell me everyone. Getting for this right time. So it's like a family reunion. Giants in a vision. They will tell me everyone. Getting for this right time. Oh, it's like a family reunion. Everything seems so real. The one that touched your I could feel. His love filled me up. Oh, Lord, I didn't want to wake up. I saw Zion in a vision. That was there to meet everyone. Getting for this right time. So it's like a family reunion. We were all singing the same song, giving praises to the Almighty One. All I could feel was happiness, surrounded by righteousness. I saw Zion in a vision. That was there to meet everyone. Stretching for this right hand. So it's like a family reunion. Zion in a vision. That was there to meet everyone. Stretching for this right hand. Oh, it's like a family reunion. There's no room for the ungodly, none for the workers of iniquity. Only pure in heart and clean hands. So be good, oh little one. I saw Zion in a vision. That was there to meet everyone. Stretching forth his right hand. Oh, it's like a family reunion. Zion in a vision. That was there to meet everyone. Stretching forth his right hand. Oh, it's like a family reunion. Everything seems so real. The warmth of Jah I could feel. His love filled me up. Oh Lord, I didn't want to wake up. I saw Zion in a vision. That was there to meet everyone. Stretching forth his right hand. Oh, it's like a family reunion. I saw Zion in a vision. Yeah. We were all singing the same song, giving praises to the Almighty One. All I could feel was happiness, surrounded by righteousness. Zion in a vision. I mean it. Zion in a vision. Yeah. I saw Zion in a vision. That was there to meet everyone. Stretching forth his right hand. Oh, it's like a family reunion.
Zion in a vision. What does that mean, Habarim? Zion. Stretching forth his right hand, the hand of activity in a vision. All right, without a vision, the people perish. Picture this, right? The handwriting on the wall, the painting on the wall, word, sound, and power, the word pictures here. Here we have the Barim. Debarim, modern Hebrew, they're enunciated as Devarim. Devarim, ancient pointing, Debarim, Debar, word, the words, Debar, to speak, Debar, word, Debarim, words. Interesting, we had Midbar, the previous, the fourth book of Moshe is known as Numbers, but in the Hebrew, from the Hebrew perspective, in the language, according to the science of the language, is known as Bamidbar. Ba in on by way of the Midbar. Debar from Debar, the same root word we have here for the fifth book, known as Debarim, the word. So Midbar, interesting how that word for wilderness, right, we can break down and build up on the idea of words. Right, words, right, an ordering of words or disordering of words. We notice that with the wandering of the children of Israel. The first generation, we could say the elders that came out, right, were brought out of Mitzrayim, but were not worthy, right? They didn't feel themselves worthy to end, but they came out. They came out of Egypt, right? But they did not enter into the promised land. Now we have a new generation, right? 40 years later here in the narrative here as we pick up with the first reading here from the fifth book, the fifth and the final book of Moshe, of HaTorah right here, Debarim. So both the 44th sabbatical study here is known as Debarim, and the book from a Hebrew perspective is called Debarim, which means the words. These are the words. Now, point of note, a point of order here, when we said Debarim, words, the Hebrew perspective, the proper context, right? Scientifically speaking, right? From the real gnosis and knowledge speaking, Debarim, ha-debarim, adding the definite article ha-debarim means the words. And that refers to the 10 words, i.e. called the 10 commandments. The 10 commandments, 10 words, right there. But here, picking up Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1. To chapter 3, verse 22. Eile, these, ha-debarim, these are the words. The final book of HaTorah, of the Torah of Moshe, is called Debarim, the words. It's from the phrase, Eile, these, these, ha-the-debarim, the words. These are the words, Eile ha-debarim, found in the opening verse. Now, in the English Bibles, KJV, right, Debarim is known as Deuteronomy, Deuteronomos, the repetition of the law. Now, this is the Greek, from the Greek, we get Deuteronomy, Deuteronomos, like the repetition of the nomos, of the law. Right? This is what was used to translate the Hebrew phrase, right, known as Mishnah. The Mishnah, we hear about the Mishnah HaTorah. Mishnah, right, from the Shana, to repeat, as we say right here, this is the second day, the Sheni, right, the Yom HaSheni. So Sheni. In the Amharic, Ethiopically, we say Senyo. Right? In the Ge'ez, right, we say Sene. So in Amharic, we say Senyo, Sene. The Hebrew, Sheni, coming from the Shana sense of like repeating. So we have the Mishnah HaTorah. So this fifth book, Deuteronomy, Debarim, the words, also known as the Mishnah HaTorah, or the copy of the Torah, or some would say the second Torah, the copy of the Torah. And this is based on what we find in the Hebrew of Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 18. Take note. Right? So the Mishnah. So you hear one say, the Mishnah, that's some Jewish thing. Well, actually, it's a Hebrew thing. It's an Israelite thing. Right? Generally speaking, this book, it represents Moshe's farewell address to the Beta Israel, to the house, to the called Beta Israel, to the whole house of Yasharallah, whole house of Israel, where he reviews the history, the narrative, and the Torot, the direction instructions given to Ha'am, given to the people, and repeatedly, over and over and over again, he warns that obedience, Shemoah to Shemoah, hearing and obeying will bring baraka, blessing, increase, prosperity, while disobedience, hard of hearing, not hearing, is if you don't hear Moses' final sermons right here, darashas right here, the series of personal discourses in this fifth book, all have the tone of rebuke. Watch, listen to Moshe's tone. What is Moshe's tone right here? Right? It's a rebuke, correction, admonition. Indeed, some of the sages, they say that it resembles a sort of a deathbed baraka, a deathbed blessing, not unlike the patriarch Jacob, Yaakov's baraka, blessing given to Banav, to his sons. Now, the book here, Devarim, Deuteronomy, the fifth book right here, Chazak, Benit, Chazek, be strong. May we encourage one another in our studies, growing in grace and in knowledge, iron sharpen iron, as we say, Chazak, because of getting through, a book, right, and being as diligent as possible, strength and more strength. The book, it opens 37 days before Moshe was to die, namely during the 40th year since the Yetziat, the coming out, Yetziat Mitzrayim, from Mitzrayim, from Egypt, from the Hekapta, Egypta, on the first day of the 11th month, now called Shavat, the 11th moon, the 11th month. The Bnei Yisrael, the sons of Israel, they were warned. They were in the land of Moab. They're being warned by Moshe here, but where they're located, location, in the land of Moab. Now, I find this to be interesting. Even in our narrative, our history, about 100 years ago, we have the Moorish Zionist temple of the Moorish Jews, and the Moors often say within their teaching that there's that link with Moab, right? The Moors, right? And the Moab link. So here we have the Bnei Yisrael, right? We're in the land, and land signifies consciousness. Right, when we get into the second of the two truths, right, the metaphysics of it all, the land signifies consciousness of Moab, right? So we have the Moorish Jews, the Moorish temple, Moorish Zionist temple, right? Not Moorish scientists, but Moorish Zionist temple of the Moorish Jews, right? And then we have here, according to the template and type, the Bnei Yisrael were in the consciousness or the land of Moab, just east of the Yarden, of the Jordan, right? Also note the distinction between mentioning the Jordan and the Jordan River. Don't confuse one for the other, even though they are, you could say, somewhat related. East of the Yarden, the Jordan, shortly before they would enter the promised land. Now, since Moshe was forbidden to enter the land, his discourse, his reasoning was concerned with, quote, making plain the Torah, making it plain, right? The plain truth of Ha-Torah, of the direction, instruction to Ha'am, to the people, to people, so that they would obey Jah's law, his direction, instruction, once they took possession of the land. So we see the steps, the stages here, that they would obey Jah's direction, instruction, once they took the possession of the land. You will obey Jah's direction, instruction, once you take possession of the consciousness. Now, our Torah portion of reading here, the manna, the angel's bread right here, the first of the book of Deuteronomy, it begins with Moses recounting the journey from Har Sinai, from Mount Sinai to the edge. Don't push them because they're close to the promised land. He mentioned the difficulty of he mentions here the difficulty, the challenges of personally governing the people, and just got to laugh about that. You know, we say about our people, you know our people, you know that, yeah. So Moses here, he's testifying about the difficulty of personally, governing Jah people. And he recalled how he had set up a system of the Shoftim, the Shoftim in the Hebrews, like the judges, right? Bamarini, the Farajoch, the judges, right? The Danyoch, right? To help him administer justice among the various tribes. Moshe then reminded Jah people of the sin, the uckery, the missing, the lack of the spies who came back, the 10 spies especially told lies and discouraged a whole generation. A whole generation was discouraged. It's kind of interesting when we look at our own narrative, our own history. There was a lot of talk about Africa, back in the days. It seemed like a lot of people was talking that talk. But anyway, we have a similarity with the sin, the uckery of the spies that told lies, right, about the Afro-Canaanite, the Canaan, the Canaanite land, and the rebellion, right, of Jah people at the Kadesh Barnea. Interesting. Talking about a revolution, but we can only rebel against ourselves. Ain't that something? Talking about revolution, right? Like the people's rebellion, right, at the Kadesh Barnea. And Kadesh Barnea is interesting when you start to do the Hebrew science on the word, the Kadesh. Kadesh from Kadash, sense of holy, something that's holy or set apart. And Barnea. Barnea is a sense of kind of wavering. Like St. Garnet Silk has that tune, splashing, dashing, restless sea. You know what I mean? Like sometimes happy, sometimes sad, like kind of a wavering, not standing firm. Now that led to John's decree that no one of that generation would live to enter the land of Canaan, to enter the Afro-Canaanite land, except for Caleb and Yehoshua, except for Caleb and Joshua. Despite John's verdict, he gave a decision to judge. Here come the judge. The judge has decided. All right, judgment. The people, Jah people, among them, they quote, repented, of their faithlessness. They repented, when they recognized that judgment that they had to wander, basically the Midbar, the wilderness, right? The Midbar, the words, because your words, you're now sentenced to wander in the Midbar, so you can, recount those words. But what they did, they immediately repented. You got to watch that quick repentance. They repented quickly, right, of their faithlessness. And then they presumptuously sought to enter the land anyway. After he told them, well, basically, you're going to jail. And you're like, I'm going home. Right? Though they were utterly defeated by the Amorites, it didn't really work out. The Amorites and the Canaanites, they beat them like bees. Now, Moshe then provided an outline. All right, just giving an overview here, synopsis here for this 44th degree of I sabbatical study here for this Shabbat Devarim, Sabbath, the words, the oracle. Moshe then provided an outline of the 38-year exile of the Bnei Yisrael, the sons of Israel, back towards the Sea of Reeds, the Yam Suf, known in the Hebrew as the Yam Suf. In the Metzaf Kedus, the Book of the Seven Seals of Panama, Haile Selassie, is known as the Etra Bahir, also known as the Eritrean Sea, right? The Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds, into the desert regions, deserts of Arabia, and then back again until the next generation was ready to enter the promised land, until the next generation was ready to enter the consciousness. Not just talking about Black consciousness in that general sense. We're talking about the Messiah mindfulness, the real Black Christ consciousness, the real consciousness. So that first generation, they wasn't there, but the children, right? I call on the youths because they are strong. They were ready. This time, now with the youths, with this new generation, the Bnei Yisrael, the sons of Israel, they were able to defeat Sihon, king of Ha'emori, king of the Sayers, king of the Amorites, and Og, king of Bashan. And their land east of the Yarden of the Jordan was divided between the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh. Now, the portion right here, this 44th degree of the sabbatical study, first reading here in the 5th book of Moses, Deuteronomy here, it fulfills with Moshe telling his successor, Yehoshua. Now, Yehoshua is already appointed. He's pointed out as being the successor right here. He is the one. He is the one. He'll become captain of the host. He's the one that's going to lead them to some of the greatest victories. When we start to look at those of the leaders, that really fulfilled even the war laws, the war Torah successfully. We have Yehoshua, Joshua to a great extent, right? We also have King David. Now, there's a few of the judges that more or less, the judges, they did what they could. But here, Yehoshua is being given instruction, and the instruction he's been given by Moshe is this: your eyes have seen all that Yahweh Eloheka, your power has done to these two kings. So will Yahweh do to all the kingdoms, all the governments, into that you are crossing. You all are crossing over. Hebrew. The sense of Hebrew means like to cross over. Interesting context here, right? So they are now actually really being Hebrew even by the act of crossing over, coming out of the desert, out of the wandering, out of the disobedience into obedience, and they're ready to face these 31. Count them here. There are 31 kings, right? There are actually 31 kings, right? 31 kings, if I'm correct, about 31 kings that they're going to have to conquer, right? This new generation of Yisrael. You shall not fear them. False evidence appearing real, no matter what you see, what it might look like. Don't be like your forefathers. What Moshe is basically saying, remember, this is what his sermons are recounting. So he's really speaking to a new generation, right, about their parents, about what happened with the parents, and what to learn from. All these things was written for our admonition. For our warning, our direction, for our guidance. All these things were written for our guidance and instruction as for my part, I glory in the Bible. So what part does a Rastafari have with Haile Selassie? Huh? There's a question there. Give us the teaching of His Majesty. You shall not fear them, for it is Yahweh Eloheka, thy power, who fights for you. All right? Not just in the passive sense as we just sit back and he does all the fighting in some situations, but in some situations he fights for us, and it's an interactive activity. I'd like to share this chazak right here, this chazak, right? Be strong and have a good courage right here. The Hebrew ancient war cry, as I say, Jah Rastafari.
Where's our war cry? We don't even know that we're at war. We don't understand that we're in hostile territory. This isn't a time of peace. It's against the principalities and the powers that are puppeteering the people. And we are in a position to see souls set free. This has been the ancient war cry throughout all the generations of the Hebrew nation. Rock, Kasak. Where does it come from? Kasak, this is the Hebrew, the rock-like oomph of the spiritually zealous heart, the game face of a mighty man, tenacity of soul, the gritting of the teeth of the spirit-inspired warrior, and the baring of those teeth to the enemy. Kasak is possessing a resolute and prowling resolve for the glory of God, a flush of spiritual fervor, a tensing of all a soldier's muscles. There's a Kasak. We don't have that spiritually. We should. We don't. Because we don't know what we're engaged with. Did you know that you have the armory of heaven? That you have everything you need for life and godliness to push the enemy forces back? And so when you hear Kasak, your knuckles spiritually should immediately turn white. And you should find yourself gritting your spiritual teeth with a belligerence against the enemy. He goes down. There are souls that must be saved. And that's just Kasak. The Hebrew statement is rakasach. However, in the Bible, where that came from, it's kasach amos. The other word that goes with it, amos. It's heavenly audacity. It's rushing headlong into the most hazardous and impossible battles without pausing to consider the impossibilities. Who had amos in the Bible? David against Goliath? That's serious amos. Okay, he's rushing headlong against the Goliath. Like, David, you might want to think about this a little. No, I'm not weighing the impossibility. This is for my God. It's a confidence in victory even before the field is taken. It's lambs moving with liquid ferocity straight into the lion's lair. How about the three that overheard him in the cave of the tulip? Says, oh, for a cup of cool water from the well of Bethlehem. Those guys had a mox. They go running out, break through a garrison of Philistines to grab a cup of cool water and then bring it back through the garrison. They're being hunted by Philistines the whole time, trying not to spill a cup of water. That's the mox. Mere men and women on earth are eaten up by the enemy. However, we're not just mere men and women of this earth. We are redeemed. We are bought with a price, and we've been changed into the body of Christ. A mox means swift-footed, all-believing, super-conquering, prevailing faith in the Lord of battles. What happens to the world if Christians once again get stock in a mox? You know what the apostles had after Pentecost? Something came into them. What was it? You can say it very simply. Stock in a mox. Spirit of God. He came in to win. He came in to turn this world on its head. Moses' last gasp was his great speech before the promised land, which he never got to enter into. And he's laying out the ground rules for the kingdom that is about to be established across that Jordan River. Be strong and of good courage. Kasach, Kamox. Fear not, nor be afraid of them. For the Lord thy God, he it is that does go with thee. He will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. And Moses called unto Joshua and said unto him in the sight of all Israel, Kasach, Kamox. Be strong and of good courage. For thou must go with this people unto the land which the Lord has sworn unto their fathers to give them, and thou shalt cause them to inherit it. Well, what's happening there? The men and women of God are coming to take what was purchased, the promise. You are surrounded by 31 hostile empires. That's what they were headed into. 31 empires on the other side of that Jordan River. 31. This is where we are at in the Church of Jesus Christ, yet we are there without a war cry. Let's understand that we are out to win for the glory of Jesus Christ. And even if we die, we win. Doesn't matter what happens to our bodies. We obey, God wins. Now suddenly we're crossing. Joshua is the same name for Jesus in the New Testament, by the way. Yeshua. This is the Savior, the man of salvation, who has come in to bring us into the inheritance. Strong and good courage. For unto this people shall thou divide for an inheritance the land which I swore unto their fathers to give them. Have I not commanded thee? Be strong and of good courage. Rock the sock. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee, whithersoever thou goest. Rock the sock, Israel. Rock the sock, men and women of God Almighty. All the powers of earth and hell that come against your soul, and all the powers of earth and hell that are puppeteering the lost masses, you hit them square in the teeth. And you show love to this world. To anyone who would spit in your face, you serve them and you love them in return and say, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Rock-a-sock, Israel.
victory, victory. Yes, I. Rastafari. So here, Deuteronomy, in Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 7, that audio right there, ancient Hebrew war cry right there, the Amat, right, Arat, the Chazak, he has a Chazak right there. But here, Deuteronomy 31 and 7, just to share this right here for the Havarim. Here we have KJV, King James Version, and Moses called to Yehoshua, Joshua, and said to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and of a good courage, for the I must go with this people to the land that Yahweh hath sworn to their fathers, their patriarchs, to give them, and the I shall cause them to inherit it. Here. Wayikra Moshe li Yehoshua Wayomer Elayo le Ainei Kol Yisrael Chazak we Emat, be strong we and Emat, of a good courage. Kiata Tabo Eta Ha'am Hazeh Il Haaretz Asher Nishba'a Yahuwah La Abotam Lateta Lahem We'ata Tanachilena Otam, and you will cause them to inherit. So here, we have this here also in Yehoshua, but here, once again, he commissioned right here, gave him a charge. Be strong and courageous. Chazak we'emat. Yes, I. Rastafari. So here. Prince Farai, this tune right here, every time I hear the words, just another segue here as we're moving into, we're in fifth book here. First Torah reading and feeding, 44th sabbatical, number 44, a significance of the number 44, and the 444. We have the 444. Remember, Jay-Z did an album some years ago, and 444, and some of the other Yehudi or Jews were a little bit, Well, it has to do with Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 44. 444, and here, Devarim, 44th sabbatical study, Prince Farai. Every time I hear the word, and here, this is like a Rhema tune, what he did right here so many years ago. It corresponds here with this fifth book right here. So it's a Rhema, a makom, a standing tune for I, Rastafari Yehudim, Rastafari Israelites.
Prophet. All the congregation of the children of Israel together, and said unto them, Hear our words which the Lord hath commanded, that ye shall do them. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day shall be the holy day, a day of Sabbath, a rest day for the Almighty. Whosoever doeth work, then shall be put to death. And work they shall put to death, he shall kindly, no fire, show your navigation upon the Sabbath day. Every time I hear the word, every time I hear the word, the word. Every time I hear the word, every time I hear the word. And the Lord said unto Moses, A32 table of stone, like unto first, and I will write upon them the table of words, that were the first table which thou art breaking. and be ready in the morning and come up in the morning unto the Mount Zion. Every time I hear the word, 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 the word. Word is thing but slow it and kind. Every time I hear the word, every time I hear the word. And Moses gathered all his congregation of the children of Israel together. And he said unto them, hear the word which the Lord hath commanded, that we shall do them. 6 days shall do all thy work. But remember the 2nd day is the Sabbath. Sabbath. Every time I hear the word, every time I hear the word, every time I hear the word, 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 every time I hear the word.
ኢየሱስ ክርስቶስን እንድንከተል የሚያደርገን
when Jesus Christ was born from Virgin Mary, from that time on, he lived an exemplary life, a life which men everywhere must emulate. This life and the faith that he has taught us assures us of salvation, assures us also of harmony and good life upon earth. Because of the exemplary character of the life of Jesus Christ, it is necessary that all men do their maximum in their human efforts to see to it that they approximate as much as they can the good example that has been set by him. It's quite true that there is no perfection in humanity. From time to time, we make mistakes. We do commit sins. But even as we do that, deep in our hearts as Christians, we know we have a chance of forgiveness from the Almighty. He taught us that all men are equal, regardless of sex, their national origin and tribe. And he also taught us, all who seek him shall find him. To live in this healthy life, a Christian life, is what makes me follow Jesus Christ.
Imperial Majesty, what advice would you give a person who is considering the claims of Christ, perhaps for the first time?
ክርስቶስን እንዲከተሉ ለማንም
I would tell a person that's considering the claim of Christ for the first time that it is necessary to have faith in the Almighty, that it's necessary to have love, and that it's necessary to conduct oneself in a manner that we have been taught to do in the Bible. I would advise him to read and to study the Bible. I would also advise him to seek secular knowledge. For the more one knows, the more he realizes the need for a prime mover, the need for a creator who's good, and the need for salvation and also for peaceful life upon earth. I'll also tell him to learn and to think for himself the ways he would serve the Lord. In this thought and in this undertaking of his, he will inevitably find the way of serving his fellow men. For his faith would then be manifested by his conduct. If Christians behave in this way, if we dedicate ourselves to this fundamental task, then we will have a peaceful world and will be assured of not transgressing against the will and the commandments of God.
Your Imperial Majesty, are there any incidents in your life which stand in your memory as times when faith in Christ sustained you?
There are many instances in my life where the belief in the Almighty and the Christian faith has sustained me in times of trouble and difficulties. No matter what may befall a human being, he can always succeed in overcoming it in time if he has the strength of faith and praise to God. For inevitably, he comes to the assistance of those that believe in him and those that through their work live an exemplary life. This goes not only for Christians in my view, but for all men. I think God commiserates with those that find themselves in misfortune.
My advice to all is to fulfill the Ten Commandments.
Blessed are they that keep the commandments, for they have a right to the tree of life. Don't resist, I say, cannot enter. Hypocrite too cannot enter. Jah cometh quickly, it's reward for you and me to judge you for the work you do. Yeah. No liars and thieves cannot enter into Jah's kingdom. Oh no, but by the work that you do. Yeah. Blessed are they who keep the commandments, for they have a right to the tree of life. No false teachers and prophets cannot enter. No liars and thieves cannot enter. No, oh no. Yeah. Blessed are they that keep the commandments, for they have a right to the tree of life. Don't resist, I say, cannot enter in the kingdom of Jah. Oh no. Ooh, no hypocrite who can enter. Jah cometh quickly, it's reward for you and me to judge you by the work that you do. No liars and thieves cannot enter. people cannot enter. No false prophets and false teachers cannot enter. Oh, blessed are they that keep the commandments. No dark princes cannot enter. No racist and pagan-hearted people can enter. No killers and robbers, no thieves cannot enter. Neither no wolf in sheep's clothing cannot enter.
የሰማይ አባታችን ሆይ በሰማይ የምትኖር ስምህ ይቀደስ፣ መንግስትህ ትምጣ፣ ፈቃድህ በሰማይ እንደሆነች እንዲሁም በምድር ትሁን። የዕለት እንጀራችንን ስጠን ዛሬ፣ በደላችንንም ይቅር በለን እኛ የበደለንን ይቅር እንደምንል፣ አቤቱ ወደ ፈተናም አታግባን ከክፉ ሁሉ አድነን እንጂ መንግስት ያንተ ናትና ኃይል፣ ምስጋና ለዘላለም።
This is Rebel and Morado. How we do it in a space. How we do it in a Chicago. How we never let us down. No. He's always around. Yeah. And that's survive. Call for the prophet and How we never let us down. I say no. He's always around. Yeah. And that's survive. Call for the prophet and
Oh, I want the commandant y la meditación junto al rey David y al rey Salomón. Yo me elevo a lo más alto del monte Sayón. Ya el emperador me da la bendición. Con el mismo verbo viene la inspiración. Rastaman cantando prende fuego a Sodom. Le trae contenido a mi bombardilón. La misión es conciencia y educación. Siempre hay un motivo por una nueva canción. De embarrar de la día y de Almighty One.
No. He's always around. Yeah. You can survive. Call for the prophet and How will never let us down. Oh, no. He's always around. Yeah. You can survive. Call for the prophet and
Nunca nos dejará caer. Yo solo debes confiar en él. Yo es el quien tiene el poder. Pues te lo digo y lo repito again. Pues mira cuando pongo de mi guay, prendo mi ganja, mi cuerpo y mi mente se calma. Obstáculo que viene Rasta siempre se salva. Brindo de alabanza, sea sobre el reggae yo danza. Tómate tu tiempo, medita, descansa. Ponle buena letra y deja que salga. Es curación para el alma. Hay meditation, gracias a la danza. Yo will never let it down. No.
He's always around. Yeah. You can survive. Call for the prophet and How will never let us down. Oh, no. He's always around. Yeah. You can survive. Call for the prophet and Show me money and bomb. Give me wisdom, tell me no depend on none. Anyone who be the elusive drum, enough like a butter when it melts and fun. You have a heap of people who you love me very much, but you cannot define one who you can trust. Man inclined to be well dangerous. Just told us, man to man is unjust, but I will never let us down. No. He's always around. Yeah. And that's survive. Call for the prophet and I will never let us down. I say no. He's always around. Yeah. And that's survive. Call for the prophet and I. The Rastaman said, Joe, but you can never feel. Joe, righteousness shall prevail. Joe, my father and my friend. Earth is just that never end. You don't know a lot of the girl that's going to return my call Morado. So we do it in a Spain and Chicago. And some do it hard, but we do it harder. Let me tell you more than nothing like my father.
Una vez más llega el Bingy Man, Tony Rebel from Jamaica with the connection from Spain. Yo, people, back to the roots, back to the future. Oh, one love.
Yahweh there. Yeah, that's that rhythm there. Yahweh there. Yes, Yahuwah would never let I down. He lifted the children of Israel, brought them up and out of Mitzrayim, out of Mitzrayim. Yes, I. So what does that mean, Habarim? Well, we're going to touch on this sabbatical study right here, since we are segueing here in the 5th book, and there's a very important, staring us in the face, this 40 years, this generation gap, and this wandering. What's all this wandering about? Right. So here, Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, just a couple of highlights right here for this sabbatical study, for this Shabbat Strong, as a kind of a prelude before we get into some more of the details. Got some questions here for this sabbatical study. I like to go through it podcast night by night, and hopefully for the Habarim brothers and sisters, go through some questions, some reasonments, as per the studies right here. LOJS.org. The sabbatical studies, some of the downloads right there, the TPVs, the Torah portion volumes. One can download the PDF copy, or one can get a hard copy. But right here for this sabbatical study, this I Rastafari sabbatical study for this Shabbat Strong. So we hear the phrase, wait on the Lord. What does wait on the Lord mean? Well, are you disciple or multitude? See, if you're in the multitudes, like when Yeshua in Matthew chapter 13, he spoke to the multitudes. When he spoke to the multitude, he spoke in parables, right? And so, they seeing see, but don't understand, hearing hear, but, don't get it basically. Right now, the disciples in the studies. So for the studies right here we go from the basic points of study, waiting for Yahweh. Hey, it's like in the tune right there. Oh, that was Morodo, and Tony Rebel right there. Yes, John's always around. Please, in I. Right? Know ye not that I bodies, that your body is a temple? If his spirit, the Irit, be in you. So waiting on Yahweh, hey, he who be who you be, is when we listen, Shema'ah. Right? Isn't that word is so important? Shema'ah Yisrael, hear, O Israel. When we listen to the voice, not just the outer ear, it's not the outer hearing. It's not according to the hearing of the senses or the foolish virgin, so to speak, but those, who have received that oil in the lamps. Remember the parable of the 5 wise, 5 foolish, the 5 senses. So we have our 5 natural senses. So in that waiting for Yahweh, hey, who is Elohim? Elohim is spirit, Ruach, is when we Shema'ah, when we hear, right, and listen to the voice of HaRuach. We are waiting. This is what it means. We are waiting on Yahweh. Hey, when we hear his voice. No, nothing spooky, but it's a part of growing in grace and the knowledge, the gnosis. Walking by the Spirit is another one. What does it mean, walking by the Spirit? Right? Walking by the breath, walking by the wind, walking by the ear, walking by the Spirit. This means, Habarim, it means to acknowledge, acting on the knowledge of the power of Moshiach, of the anointed, of the ointment, the anointing Spirit within mind, soul, and body. Within the mind, the soul, carbon, organic body, right? Health-wise, our natural flesh, and also extending even to our, material and the financial things that are there for our physical, right? For our 5 cycles. So walking in the Ruach means acknowledgement and acting on the knowledge of that power of the anointed of Moshiach, or some might say the Christ Spirit, the Moshiach, Ruach, within the mind, the soul, and the body as the dominating force. We'll say Jah is in control. Yah is in control. We're within his temple. Jehovah, Yahweh is in his temple. That means having the Irit, receiving the Spirit within. And the attractor of the Spirit is the Word. The Word is like the magnet, the magnet. So here we study the Word, here, even in this 44th sabbatical study for the Shabbat Strong for Debarim, the words. Eile Hadebarim. These are the words. So let's speak a couple of words right here before we ride it with today's daily psalm. according to the royal order of Ethiopian Hebrews, and after order of Melchizedek, we have Psalm 143, 143rd Psalm. But first this wandering, right? This wandering right here. No longer wandering, but now they've moved from wandering in the fourth book to the transition here into the fifth book to the march.
Sabbatical study, this I Rastafari sabbatical study for this Shabbat strong. Shabbat strong. Shabbat strong. Shabbat strong. Shabbat strong.
The wandering in the wilderness, of the Bnei Yisrael. Remember the 42? So that's the study of the 42, right? 42, those 42 stations, stages, spots, encampments, right? Those places. Some of the places are said not to be known today, and we have some big questions for the Habarim. Like, let's reason on, some studies on the location on the ground. But first things first, the logistics right here, the logos, the word right here, the Debarim right here. Why do you think Hashem, the name, Yahweh, Jehovah, commanded this detailed list in the previous book in Numbers chapter 33, verse 2? Now, the Baal Shem Tov had said that the 42, quote, stations, Masa'e, right, the places, the spots along the journeys, the trod from the Hekapata, Egypt, Kemet, Mitzrayim, to the Promised Land, are replayed. It's said to be a replay. It gives a course. It's almost like a map, a road map, right, for the life, the liberty of every individual Yehudi, right? So we can apply this here to the Hebrew, to the Israelite, and even a new covenant sense, right, to the Christian, right? As the soul journeys from its descent, right, to its return to its source, right? He never let us down because he brought the children of Israel up, right? When we talk the Aliyah, going up, the Aliyah, going up in the word, the Aliyah, returning to the land, going to the promised land, the Aliyah, making the heights, higher heights, the Aliyah. So here, concerning the wandering of the Bnei Yisrael, the sons of Israel, Bamidbar. And we emphasize Bnei Yisrael in this context when we're speaking about specifically the sons, among them, right, to whom more is given, more is required to be first in place, one must be first in merit, right? That's what Jehovah says in the Debarim, right, the Eseret HaDebarim, they shall visit the iniquity, right, of the fathers, not fathers and mothers, but the fathers, upon the children, specifically upon the sons, the third and fourth generation. So here, course correction right here, right? The meta-phi cycle of the wandering, the Bnei Yisrael, the sons of Israel, leaving Mitzrayim, the Hekapata, Egypt, Kemet, if you please, wandering through the Midbar, Dabar, words, Midbar, wilderness. They entering the Canaan and taking possession of the promised land are symbolical, right? You could say allegorical of the unfoldment and the growth of the individual, the indivisible dual, from the material to spiritual consciousness. Now, just to put a kind of a audible footnote right here, and heal up to Ross Seymour. Yes, I duly elected international chaplain of the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated for this 2022. He was having a reasoning and got to post it on the individual. This word individual. How do we see this word individual? We refer to it as the indivisible dual, the I and the I and I, but bring it to singularity, right? Bring it into oneness, right? Not being double-minded, but of singularity, from the material to the spiritual, from the lower to the higher, right? Aliyah, making heights, from material to spiritual consciousness. Now, according to the record and the narrative, the children of Israel, they wandered in the Midbar in the wilderness for 40 years on their way to the promised land. Although, get this, the journey might have been accomplished in 40 weeks. So think about that, 40 years wandering, just going round and round and round. Remember that movie, was it Cool Hand Luke? I think that some of you know that movie, Cool Hand Luke, Paul Newman. The warden said, what we have here is a failure to communicate. And he said, boy, if you don't listen, we're going to go round and round. You know, like when the parent will be like the so-called ass whooping, you know, going round and round. Well, this is what happened to the Bnei Yisrael, the sons of Israel, to a whole generation, right? They wandered for 40 years as they were journeying, you know, round and round. They were journeying to the promised land, but then Jah put them in a loop, you know, put that generation in a loop. Ever feel like you're living in a loop? Put that generation in a loop, right? Although the journey might have been accomplished in 40 weeks. So 40 years or 40 weeks, right? Or maybe if they were obedient, 40 days. But the reason is given in Deuteronomy, right? Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 2 to 3. That's coming up here as we're in the 5th book, Devarim, Deuteronomy, for this Rastafari sabbatical study, for this Shabbat Strong here at the 44th. But just scroll ahead to Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 2 and 3, and you get the reason. Quote, and thou shalt remember all the way that Yahuwah Eloheka, that Jehovah thy power, thy Elohim, hath led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, that he might humble thee. Humble thee. Interesting, one of the themes here on the dub-wise for today's daily psalm, Psalm 143, is the themes of humble, right? Humble. You know what I mean? Humble, be humble, humble thyself. But here it says, and thou shalt remember. It's like remember the Sabbath, right? Remember. What does it cost to remember? What do we do when we remember? If remember is the command, then what do we have to do to remember? Just to call it to mind, to remember, to think on it. And thou shalt remember all the way. What are we to do? To remember all the way that Yahweh Eloheka hath led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, that he might humble thee, to prove thee, right? And we look at this word prove thee, it's like when you're testing metal, metallurgy, something I'm very interested in, you know, the alchemy of it all, right? Metallurgy, like when you're transforming metal, right? You know, and you're proving metal, you know, like when they're making, you know, instruments for farming or instruments for war. You know what I mean? You don't want to have like a sword or a shield that when somebody hits it, it cracks, it breaks, or you hit somebody's shield and your sword breaks up, or you hit the ground, or it doesn't work, right? So to prove it, right? To know, to what? To know that he might humble thee, prove thee, and to know, right? Check out these verbs right here, right? He led thee these 40 years, that for a reason. So we're to remember what? The way that he who be our power have led thee these 40 years in the Midbar to do what? That he might humble thee, right? Not humiliate. They didn't say humiliate. A lot of people get that confused. Many of us sometimes do in this world flesh, satanic seclorum, right? In this wilderness, so to speak. You know, the difference between humble, right? Being humble doesn't mean humiliate. In fact, the words in other languages don't even begin with the same letter. So in English, you might get that confused. But to humble thee, to prove thee, right? To make thee show, right? To know what was in thy heart. Now, some say, well, doesn't he know what's in thy heart? Yeah, but do you know? You know, that I and I may know as one what is in thy heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments. They already said they would, John. Oh, well, how did that work out? Wouldest keep his commandments or no? Im lo. Whether they would do it, im lo, or no, or if not. And he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger and fed thee with manna, like in Hebrew, what? What? It's like manna is an interesting word in the Hebrew, manna, right? Often referred to like the angel's bread. But in Hebrew, literally, they were saying like what? Manna. Ma is like what, and na is like a, how would it be called? It's like a, like almost like interjection is a better word for it, but it's almost like, please pray the eye. Come on now. It's like expression. It's kind of like expression that has a sense of what now? Like, come on, like, what is this? Like, what is this? Actually, mana refers to whatness, all right? Whatness. Like to do a little vlog on that, whatness. But the manna, like we call the sabbatical study, like the manna, this sabbatical study, this Torah reading and feeding is the manna, the angel's bread, the messenger's bread, because Adonai, gave the word, and great is the company of them that publish, the angels, the messengers. So we have to know, well, what it is, right? So with manna that thou knewest not. You didn't know this manna. Did we know what's in this Torah here before we started studying? No, we didn't, right? Neither did thy fathers, thy patriarchs know this. Right? No, that he might make thee know, that he might make thee to know. It didn't say to believe, it didn't say to have faith, it didn't say to hope. It says to have that gnosis, that scientia, to have the divine science that man doth not live by bread only, but by every word or everything that proceedeth out of the mouth of Yahweh doth man live. This is very interesting right here. Why is this interesting right here? Because this is the same words that Robenu, Adonenu, Yeshua, I Rabbi, I Master, Yeshua, Hanotri, Jesus of Nazareth said, right, during those 40 days, right, in the wilderness, right, to Hasatan, to the adversarial mind, or to Satan, if you please. We say the adversarial mind, that man does not live by bread only, right, by the material side of things, but by everything. Some say every word. This is where the idea in the New Testament, the Brit Chadasha, where Yeshua says this, the adversarial mind, the Satana mind, the Hasatan mind. He says it's a Rhema word. You may hear people talk about the Rhema word. Rhema is a Greek, a Koine Greek, Coptic Greek thing, right? Basically, Rhema is like that. It's like the verb. It basically means a verb. Rhema is like verbal, like was it verbum in the Latin, verbum incarnatum, like verbum incarnatum, like the word incarnate, right? So the Rhema symbolizes the word incarnate, right? And in the Latin, that's the verbum or verbum incarnatum. That's actually what they say, like, part of the the blasphemy that they say to some popes and everything, like he's the word incarnate. But the word verbum in the Koine Greek is Rhema. And many Christians use this term to say like the Rhema is the right now word. For example, the logos, the dabar, right, is the word like we have in the Bible, right? You ever have a word in the Bible, or a word in the Bible, and then there's a situation like, for example, one of the favorite verses was in Psalm 68, verse, I think 9, which says that the Lord sent a plentiful rain to confirm his inheritance when it was weary. There's times that I and other brethren and sister and I, we've been like maybe out in the park or somewhere, like in the open air and like reasoning, right? And then the reasoning gets to a certain point and somebody says something, right? And then right at that time they say something, right? Say, I licked that word sound that Adonai gave the, send a plentiful rain to confirm his inheritance. And right then, if it rains, you know what I'm saying? The correspondence, the word was written in Psalm thousands of years ago, but I apply it to this situation right now, and there's a manifestation. There's like that word creates a ripple in the wave of life. It's the real Higgs boson. the Rhema word, right? That Rhema word, that right now word that proceedeth out of the mouth, right, of Jehovah, of he who be who he be, and I and we. That's when one is in that I am or that anahu consciousness. And this is what Moshiach, Yeshua, was demonstrating for I and I, that we may do the works that he do and also greater. Now, when under spiritual discipline or spiritual discipleship, we should accept without murmuring whatever comes to us. Oh, discipleship is work, right? We have to work out our salvation, as the word says, right? As Shaul, right? Rabbi Shaul, right? Brother Paulos, we have to work out our salvation. When under spiritual discipleship and discipline, we should accept without murmuring whatever comes to us. And you have to always say what murmuring is. See, murmuring, like you get a pain, you're going to say, ouch. But then going on talking about it, remember the word that proceeds out your mouth, okay? And try to find the mental cause, right? You got to find a mental cause for mental health's sake, right? For mental health, the mental cause. We do not go directly to the promised land, right? In other words, to put it within the Brit Chadasha sense, we don't go directly into, you can say, the Christ consciousness. Though people might declare it, they actually don't go directly. There's like kind of a wilderness experience, right? Because we are ignorant. We're ignorant. Ignosis. The word ignorant, not right? In the Greek, not gnosis, ignosis, agnosis, right? Not knowing. We're not knowing of the Torah of existence, right? Or the Torah of life. As we find in Romans chapter 8, right? We get the new Torah, right? Or the Torah, the renewed Torah. We say, what do you mean by that? According to Romans chapter 8, the Torah of life, right? In the Moshiach Yeshua, that direction, instruction of life, right? The law, the Torah, the direction, instruction of existence, right? He be who he be, I am that I am, Anahu, I am he. We attribute to life a physical, a phi cycle instead of, right, the real base, the metaphysical, the spiritual base. We try to solve the problem of life in material ways, right, instead of spiritual. Now, this is not one of these reasonments where some people are talking spiritual, and forget about the material. No, the teacher of his majesty says that, we have to have that balance, that true cross, that balance, right? The material and the spiritual, right, are important, right? For example, we are physical, we have physical bodies, but our thoughts, our spirit, our soul, our life, the essence of it is not seen, is not perceptible. You can't put it under a microscope, right? And thus, constantly, right, we fall short when we try to solve the problems of life and liberty in only material ways, right? Like Black Lives Matter. I ask, is it too materialistic, right? Instead of spiritual way, soul people matter, right? And thus, when we do so, we fall short of what the glory, what's the teaching of his majesty? For my part, I glory in the Bible, not just in the book, right? But in the liberty, right? The word become flesh, verbum incarnatum, right? That word become flesh, that word manifesting in one's phi cycle, right? Manifestation. When we fall short, what happens? We wander to and fro, go around and around, searching for a way out of our difficulties. Notice that the way of Yeshua, that they call Christianity, originally was known as Ha-Derek. The way, right? Mengedu, his way, the way, Ha-Derek, right? We search for a way, right? And we find a lot of ways, but we miss out on the way, as they did for 40 years. We search for a way out of our difficulties, yet being ignoring. Right. So ignorance is like a twofold sense. You could be ignorant, like there's something somebody said, what's going on behind your back? And if I don't turn around, no, I don't know. I don't know. Right. But there's ignorance, you just don't know. But there's also willful ignorance. Yet ignoring, knowing what you know, you continue to do what you do. Yet ignoring the only way, the way, the truth, the life of the King of Kings Christ. That is an adjustment, a judgment. You have to make a judgment, a decision, and then make that adjustment of our thoughts, our thinking to the divine mind. It says, let this mind be in you. That's in the Moshiach, that anointed mind. The soul of man is a mental thing. Yes, the soul of man, she's a mental thing. And her growth depends on spiritual food. Her growth depends on he and she, one, as in the beginning. Thoughts and words of truth. Thoughts, thinking, and words of truth. Ha'adon, the Lord, the sovereign, is striving to make himself known in our confused thoughts. And the confused thoughts, they represent the wilderness experience in our minds. The wilderness experience in our minds. And when we cry out in our sense of lacking, caught lacking, sinning, falling short, there is an not so visible, right, an invisible outpouring and temporary satisfaction that we feel, that we perceive. Notice our feelings, right? That feelings are real, but notice you don't really see feelings. People can act out. That is not seen. We are not always aware of the source, but we know that we have in some not seen way been fed inwardly. People who have had this spiritual refreshing after a period of disillumination that they call darkness, they often exclaim, What an outpouring of the blessed Spirit we have had. Oh, if it would only stay with us always. We are to be obedient.
Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please hold and you will be able to listen to the show.
You know, this is we begin a half an hour later on the Monday on the first podcast of the Shabua. So for those on the live stream, there's a little disconnection and everything. Hopefully ones and ones can get connected again soon. We got like 16 minutes counting down, 15 minutes, y'all. So ones and ones can call in 515-602-9761. Or those in the live stream that are interested, you know, one can call in and hopefully, you know, as we lay some of the basics, and one can also do their own due diligence, their own research. So when we have our open the lines and have our reasonments, because I'm really curious about some of the, you know, all of the questions, the reasonments that pertain, especially to what we are studying or is related to our studies right here. So once again, just to fulfill this part right here, 15 minutes counting down right here. So when we are obedient, when we shema, when we hear, right, and obey. So brothers and sisters, yeah, those on the live stream, hopefully ones can return to the live stream and hear the full of it. You know, there'll be a little space right there. But, you know, that's how it is with these things, you know, these things. When we are obedient, shema, right, to the divine law, direction, instruction, and cast all error, right, all error thought, all Satan thought, right, all the thought of the ops out of our mind, all adversarial thoughts, you know, dealing with the real Satan, overcoming the real adversary, you know, in the spirit and truth. We shall consciously have the heavenly, the highest substance all the time. But we should not attain this condition, this state, this standing, this inner standing, this understanding, this overstanding by murmuring against Ha-Torah or by calling blindly or deafly on Ha'adon, on Adawan. Lord, oh my God. You know, but no, study his word, the oracles. We must strive patiently. Patience is a virtue, right? Patience is a virtue, and the word virtue actually means a strength, right? So what it's really saying that patience is a strength. Our erroneous thoughts, our lack, our sinning, our fuckery, right? Our shortcomings, and then the Dibre Elohim. Dibre, as we were explaining, right? Dibre is words of. It's what they call in Hebrew like I think a constructive. It's in constructive state. So it's like when we say Haila, it means power of. So it needs something behind it. Haila Mariam, Haila Selassie, Haila Gabriel, Haila. So when we say Divrei, it's saying words of. But Divrei and Devarim is basically saying words, except Devarim is just saying words, while Divrei is saying words of. But Divrei Elohim is to say the oracles. So it's about the words of Elohim, the oracles, right? Then the Divrei Elohim will create where? In us, right? No spookism, in I and I, a new man, that regeneration, right? That regeneration. And we, right? And we shall know that there is flesh, blood, and substance of an abiding nature, of abiding nature. This is what the whole fullness, right, of the plan of salvation is about. There's a fall. We're in a fall loop, a fall cycle, right? And we're coming up and out of, right? We say that spiritual Egypt, so to speak. And we shall know that there is and there are flesh, blood, and substance of an abiding nature that Yeshua HaMoshiach manifested, right, as that template and type. And of that, I and I can partake through him, right? Through him in spirit and in truth. This is Tawahido, that oneness, right? His word is in I and I. We are in him. The Father's in him. They're in us. We are one divinity. Thus shall we enter into and begin to take possession of the promised land, possession of the Christ, the true Moshiach mindfulness, the true Christ consciousness that symbolizes the lifting up, right? That resurrection, that lifting up of both soul and body to the spiritual, the higher expression, and that manifestation. Here, calling to mind the words that we find in Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8 is a good study along these levels. With all the creation, all the natures, all the creation is waiting, right? That means the animals, the creatures, all the living creatures, even the elements, right? All the elementals, all the natures, right? All the natures are waiting for what? Waiting for I and I to grow up, right? Waiting for that manifestation of the B'nai Elohim. It's a very important chapter there, Romans chapter 8 in the fullness. But here, brothers and sisters and brothers, today's daily psalm, this is probably a good way to segue right here. First here, Psalm 143.
Psalm 143. Hear my prayer, O Lord, give ear to my supplications. In thy faithfulness answer me, and in thy righteousness, and enter not into judgment with thy servant. For in thy sight shall no man living be justified. For the enemy hath persecuted my soul. He hath smitten my life down to the ground. He hath made me to dwell in darkness as those that have been long dead. Therefore is my spirit overwhelmed within me. My heart within me is desolate. I remember the days of old. I meditate on all thy works. I muse on the work of thy hands. I stretch forth my hands unto thee. My soul thirsteth after thee as a thirsty land. Selah. Hear me speedily, O Lord. My spirit faileth. Hide not thy face from me, lest I be like unto them that go down into the pit. Cause me to hear thy loving kindness in the morning, for in thee do I trust. Cause me to know the way wherein I should walk, for I lift up my soul unto thee. Deliver me, O Lord, from mine enemies. I flee unto thee to hide me. Teach me to do thy will, for thou art my God. Thy spirit is good. Lead me into the land of uprightness. Quicken me, O Lord, for thy name's sake. For thy righteousness' sake, bring my soul out of trouble. And of thy mercy, cut off mine enemies, and destroy all them that afflict my soul. For I am thy servant, 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 thy servant,
Amen, 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 amen. Did you get those rhema words? There's a lot of rhema right now words. You know, that rhema word. A lot of rhema words right here that actually reflect even where we're at here with this sabbatical study for this Shabbat Strong. And I was about to ride that with a royal and heart, but from what we just heard, right, the inner ear, you know what I mean? That inner ear, the iritical ear. We're Psalm 143. 143. Let's go through this right here, just to touch on a few of these. Like, okay, the land, the verse 3 where it says, for the enemy hath persecuted my soul. Now, my soul is she. Now, in ancient Egypt, you know, they talk about the throne and all that, you know, the throne on top of Osset, Yisset, you know, you sit on top of a head and everything like that. But the throne actually within the Hebrew is different. So our metaphysical understanding is similar on some levels, but it's different on other levels. The soul now, she is she, right? So here in the context right here for the enemy, he have persecuted she, my soul, my psyche. He have smitten my life down to the ground. He has made me to dwell in darkness, in this illumination without light, as those that have been long dead. So this theme of the living and the dead, not even just speaking of, you know, the psalmist here, Psalm of David, is not just talking about like physical death, you know what I'm saying? But we're overstanding the word, right? Not according to the letter, but the spirit, right? There was a verse here, verse 6. It says, I stretch forth my hands to thee. You see it on the monuments, you know, to understand the ancient understanding that was universal, right, amongst the ancient nation. There was something that was universal, but we give thanks for ancient Mitzrayim and, you know, like he said, Egypt, my people, because there we can see a lot of correspondences. Note this verse right here, which I stretch for my hands. We played the psalm earlier, I think it was Garnet Silk. Right, so the Father stretching forth his right hand. Well, the right hand, throughout the scriptures, the hand of activity, right? The hand of, you could say, action, right? It's an action hand, and the signification of the hand. Hands symbolize work, right? Hands symbolize giving. Hands symbolize receiving. I stretch forth my hands to thee, right? The most active part, we could say one of the most active parts, right, of our outer body. You know, not talking about the inner, but the, you know, like the extremities is the hands. He says, my soul, she thirsteth, right? Now, the word thirsteth, if you look at the King James Version, the word thirsteth is actually italicized in the KJV, Psalm 143, verse 6. That word really doesn't appear there in the Hebrew. So the more force of the sentence will be, my soul, my psyche, after thee. My soul is after thee. I stretch forth my hands to thee, right? My soul, she is after thee. So both I and my hands is to thee, and she, my soul, is to thee. But the likeness here is as a thirsty land. Remember the land? Symbolizing consciousness, the wilderness, the wandering, right? What was the inner reasons? You know, the inner reasons for that, right? There's a couple of other verses that we caught just in hearing the reader, Alexander Scorby, read it, right? But we can go through a little more details right here. Let's go to verse 10. This verse 10 right here. Teach me to do thy will. And thy will, right, be done, thy kingdom come on earth. Right? If you want to fly away to the heavens, no, we just want the praises to go up and the baraka to come down. Right? Teach I to do thy will. Right? For thou, the I, Elohai. Elohai in the Hebrew, Elohai. Right? My El, my Hayel, my power, highly I. Thy spirit, the I spirit, right? Notice Romans chapter 8, verse 28, right? We know we are sons, right? And children, right? Because his spirit testifies of our spirit. Thy spirit is good. Lead I into the land of uprightness. Right? That Yasha, right? Yisharim, that Yasha, that Jasher, that upright land. Was this one of the reasons there was a generation gap? Then in verse 11, the quicken me. Now, quicken doesn't mean like make me like move around really fast or something like that. That's not the sense of it, the direct sense. Quicken me is like give me life, like cause me to lively up, like almost like if somebody almost drowned in the water. You grab them out the water, you take them on the drier ground, and you do all that CPR and everything, on them, right? And still nothing's happening. And all of a sudden they go, that's the sense of quicken me. Quicken me, oh Yahweh, hail, he who be, for thy name's sake. Why? Why are we asking to be quickened? For the Hashem, for the name's sake. What's the name? Yahweh, he who be, right? For thy righteousness, right? That righteousness' sake, bring my soul, bring my soul, my feeling, my emotion, my sense of self, right? Out of trouble. And of thy mercy, cut off mine enemies and destroy all them that afflict her, my soul. So see this balance here when we understand some of the basics, because people from the Bible, but they don't know the science of the Bible. The science of the Bible has, first of all, even from the basic English, with what the words mean in their translated, the context of the translation. I know we're not speaking this 1611 nowadays, but still, you study Shakespeare. You like any Shakespeare? A lot of us like Shakespeare. We learn those old expressions, but we learn what it means, right? So the same thing right here. But this final part right here, the final closing, for I am thy servant. He begins off, hear my prayer, O Jehovah. Give ear, incline your ear to my supplication, to my petition. This is my petition. This is what I'm beseeching, what I'm pleading. It's like you go into court, right? And you're pleading with the judge, right? In thy faithfulness, answer me. Notice that right there. He didn't say in my faithfulness. Check. He says in thy faithfulness. So it's like you're going before the judge, you're in a situation and you say, in your faithfulness, your honor, hear my prayer, give ear to my supplication, right? In your faithfulness, right? In your faith, right? Answer me, right? Almost like, don't worry about what my faith is, but your faith, right? And in thy righteousness. He doesn't say in my righteousness. We hear a lot of talk about self-righteousness. In your righteousness. Verse 2, and enter not into judgment with thy servant. Establishing a relationship, right, with thy servant. I am a servant of the Almighty Creator of all of this out and all this within. Enter not into judgment with thy servant. For in thy sight shall no man living be justified. Right? Shall no man living be justified. Let's get this right here in the Hebrew. In the Hebrew, they say man. Man should be in italicizations too. Because the Hebrew says ki for kilo yitzdak. Kilo yitzdak. Right? To be righteous. Lefaneka. In your face, in your perception, in your perspective, in the way you see things. Lefaneka, call high, call all high. So it brings up the sense that in your sight, all things living is not justified, can make themselves righteous in his sight. And this brings I right here to the verse 3, just touching on a couple of highlights, from the hearing, and also to give a little more clarity so that ones can apply, right? Apply the divine science to life and liberty and eat the fruit of the tree of liberty and tree of life. So right here, let's ride up right here. Here we have a couple of rhythm right here. We're going to do this rhythm right here on the rhythm wise, heal up, be humble dub, Micah, Shemaiah, right? And Azadaki. Asnadaki. Yes. Heal up. Apologies right there. Here. This dub wise. Be humble.
መዝሙር 142 በቅንፍ 143 ልጁ ባሳዴ የዳዊት መዝሙር አቤቱ ጸሎቴን ስማ በእውነትህ ልመናዬን አድምጥ በጽድቅህም መልስልኝ ሕያው ሁሉ በፊትህ ጻድቅ አይደለምና ከባሪያ ጋር ወደ ፍርድ አትግባ ጠላት ነፍሴን አሳዷታል ሕይወቴንም በምድር ውስጥ አጎሳቅሏታል ቀድሞ እንደሞተ ሰው በጨለማ ኑሮኛል ነፍሴ በውስጥ ያለቀችብኝ ልቤም በውስጤ ደነገጠብኝ የቀድሞውን ዘመን አሰብ ስራህንም ሁሉ አሰላስብ የእጅህንም ስራ ተመለከት እጆቼን ወደ አንተ ዘረጋሁ ነፍሴም እንደ ምድረ በዳ አንተን ተጠማች አቤቱ ፈጥነህ ስማኝ ነፍሴ አልቃለች ፊትህን ከኔ አትመልስ ወደ ጉድጓድም እንደሚወርዱ አልሁን አንተን ታምኛለሁና በማለዳ ምሕረትህን አሰማ አቤቱ ነፍሴን ወደ አንተ አንስቻለሁና የሚሄድበትንም መንገድ አስታውቅ አቤቱ ወደ አንተ ተማጽኛለሁና ከጠላቶች አድነኝ አንተ አምላኬ ነህና ፈቃድህን ለማድረግ አስተምረኝ ቅዱስ መንፈስህም በጽድቅ ምድር ይምራኝ አቤቱ ስለ ስምህ ሕያው አድርገኝ በጽድቅህም ነፍሴን ከመከራው አውጣ በምህረትህ ጠላቶቼን ደምስሳቸው እኔ ባሪያህ ነኝና ነፍሴን የሚያስጨንቋትን ሁሉ አሳች
Yes. That's going to Be Humble, dubbed by Micah, Shemaiah, and Asad Nadaki. Yes. Be humble right there. And here from the Royal Amharic, from the King of Kings Bible, the Metaf Kedus, today's daily psalm. It has a theme of humble petition, humble ask. In the Sefer Tehillim, Hebraically, the theme is brought out as a call for God's help, a call for Hashem, for Yahweh's help, right here. So this psalm, well, here, let's ride up right here. Yes, Rastafari.
We have a call for Exavias. The psalm Tehut, Limena. Tehut, Limena. Elek, Melchizedek, Garmawi, Haile Selassie. Today's daily psalm Tehut, Limena. Tehut, Limena. Mezmor meto arba sauce. Today's daily psalm, according to the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrews, and here after the order of Melchizedek, Garmawi, Haile Selassie. Today's daily psalm, Tehut, Limena. Here we have a call for Exavia's help, guidance, and help. This psalm, it resembles the preceding one and very closely in tone and circumstance, and some say may have the same authorship. Superscription, Liju Basadado Gizeh Dawid Mezmor. To the title of Psalm of David in the LXX, and here in Garmawi, Haile Selassie, the Metzach Kedus, the Book of the Seven Seals, we have when his son, speaking of Absalom, though his name not mentioned, says Liju, his son, Basadado Gize, when his son persecuted him. Lidu, Basadado Gize, Ya Dawit Mezmor, a psalm of David. Lidu, Basadado Gize, Ya Dawit Mezmor. But the reason for a so-called post-Davidic date mentioned in the introduction to Psalm 142 is said to apply here as well. So the previous Psalm, Imitaden So, Salot, the Washa, Menabaragizeh, we inherit. That was a previous Psalm, but today's daily Psalm, according to the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrews. And here, Mezmor Meto Arba Sos. Mezmor Dawid, a Psalm of David, a theme, Tehut Lemena. Tehut Lemena, a humble petition, a humble ask. Tehut Lemena. Can I begin with some the word of Memphis Kedus, Ahadu, Amlak. The name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, one source. Mezmor Dawid, Mezmor Meto Arba Sos. Leju Basadado Gize, Ye Dawid Mezmor, a psalm of David when his son persecuted him. Leju Basadado Gize, Ye Dawid Mezmor. Kuter an verse 1. Abetu Selotain Sema, Baunate Liminayen Adamit, Besit Kehema Malisalim. Hear my prayer, Abetu, I Father, his Father, Father of the house, give ear to my supplications. Abetu Selotain Sema, Baunate Liminayen Adamit, Besit Kehema Malisalim, in thy faithfulness. Answer me, and in thy righteousness. Here, Bamarinya Baonet, the eye truth, the eyes objective reality, Baonet, Lemenaye, my ask, my beseeching, my petition, Adamit, give ear, pay attention. That's it to him, and in the eyes righteousness. That's it to him, and in the eyes righteousness. Malisalim, answer to I. Good hulet, verse 2. Hiyaw hulu befiteh sadik idelamin kabariyah gar wodafurda atigaba, and enter not into judgment with thy servant. For in thy sight shall no man living be justified. Hiyaw hulu befiteh sadik idelamin. Hiyaw, life, living. Hiyaw, hulu all. Hiyaw hulu all living. Befiteh, in the eyes present, in the eyes perception, in the eyes face. Befiteh, sadik, righteous, righteous, for in thy sight shall no man living. All living in the eyesight is not tzaddik, is not righteous, is not just, is not justified. Kabariyah, bariyah, servant, slave, bariyah. The eyes, male, servant, slave, kabariyah, gar. And with the eyes, servant, what a third, atigba, what a third. To judgment, atigba, do not enter towards judgment, into judgment with the eyes, servant. Kuter sos, verse 3. Elate nefsein asado atal. He wetenim the midrwista gusa kulo atal. Kadmo in the motaso bechelama anuronya. For the enemy hath persecuted, falsely prosecuted my soul. Elate. Here we have telate. The eyes, male, enemy. The eyes, enemy. Nefsein, my soul, nefse, my psyche. Asaddo, atal, has persecuted. For the eyes, enemy, has persecuted my psyche. Hiwetenim, and my life. Hiwetenim, bemidarwista, gusakulo, atal. He has smitten my life down to the ground. He has made me to dwell in darkness as those that have been long dead. Kadmo, in the mote soul. Kadmo, previously, from before, as one who is dead, as a man that long dead. Bechelama anuronya, in darkness you have caused I to dwell. Kuter arat, verse 4. Nefse bewuste alek etchbing. Zedem bewuste the negative being. Therefore is my spirit, my irid, overwhelmed within I. My heart within I is desolate. Here in the world of heart, the Mitzvah Kedusha says, Nefse, my soul, my psyche, Nefse bewuste, and I. Alek etchbing. She runs out. She's exhausted. She's spent, overwhelmed in that sense. Alek being my soul within I, not spirit as we have in the KJV. Therefore is my spirit overwhelmed within I. More better. Therefore is my soul within I. My soul within I overwhelmed. She is overwhelmed. Libam, and my heart that will stay within I. The negative being. My heart within I is desolate. KJV has desolate, is in a mental shock. My heart, and he is in a mental shock against I, is shocked, is desolate by a mental shock. So we have nefse, but we stay alek etchbing. My soul, she within I is spent, is overwhelmed. Libam, and my heart, but we stay the negative. My heart within I is in a state of shock, mental shock. Kuter Amos, verse 5. Yek edmo winna zemen asabahu. Sarahinim hulu asalasallahu. Ya ijhinim sarah tamalakatuhu. I remember the days of old. Yek edmo winna zemen asabahu. I recall, I reckon, Yek edmo win, the previous zemen, the ancient days, the days of old. Yek edmo winna zemen asabahu. Sarahinim hulu asalasallahu. I meditate, I meditate on all the eye's works. Sarahinim hulu, all the eye's male work. Asalasalhu, I meditate, I meditate. Yajihinim sarah, and the work of the eye, male hand. Yajihinim sarah, tamalakatuhu. I muse, I pay attention. Tamalakatuhu, I paid attention to the work of the eye's hand. Ut al Sadist, verse 6. Ijochina would ante zaragal. Nesim in the midrebeda antenna pet emach. I stretch forth my hands to the eye. Ijochin, my hands with the ante to the eye. Male speaking directly to he who be, Ijochin with the ante zaragal. I stretch forth my hands to the eye. Nefsim, and my soul, my psyche, Nefsim in the midrebeda antenna pet emach. And my soul thirsteth. She's thirsty for the eye, after the eye, as a thirsty land. Selah, 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 Selah. Utel Sabat. Verse 7. Abetu fetne semanye nefse alk alech fitehin kene atameles. Ore gurgwadimman demi wardua alhun. Here I speedily, Abetu, I father's father, O Ab of the bait. Fetne, seman. Here I quickly, speedily. Nese alech. My spirit, here KJV has my spirit faileth. My psyche is spent. My psyche runneth out. My psyche, my soul. Nese alech. So KJV has my spirit, but here in the Mitzvah Kedusha, nefse, my soul, my psyche, alech. My soul faileth. She spent. Fitehin. Kane atamelis, hide not thy face, thy presence, thy perception. Fitehin, kane, ka'ine, fitehin, ka'ine, from I, kane, atamelis, hide not thy face from I. What a gurgwadim and mi wardu alhun, lest I be like to them that go down into the pit, wada gurgwadim, into the pit, and the mi wardu, as those who go down, al-hun, so I be not as those that go down into the pit. Kutar cement. Verse 8. Antenna tamnyal hunna bemaladam hiretehinna seman avirtu nefsin. Wada ante anischal hunna yemma hedebetinna men geda satawkeng. Cause me to hear thy loving kindness in the morning. Anten tamnyal hunna, for in the eye do I trust. Bemalida, in the morning and early. I was bemalida mihiret to hin, the eyes mercy asamayim. Asaman cause I to hear, Abir to Nesin would anta, Nischalahuna, Yemehid Betina Menget, Astaukang, cause I to know the way, the Menget, the way wherein I should walk, the way wherein I should trod. Yemehid Betin Menget, Astaukang, for I lift up my soul, my psyche, I lift up my psyche to thee, I. Nesin, whether ante, anischalhuna, yemaheda betina menget, as talking, kuter zeteng, verse 9, abetu, whether ante, te matinyalhuna, katalatochen adneng, deliver, save, cause I to be dehna, save, well, deliver I, abetu, from mine enemies, from my haters. I flee to thee, to hide me. Whether ante to the I male, speaking directly to he who be, we be. Whether ante to the I and no other. Whether ante te mat nyalhuna katalatoche adneng kuter asa, verse 10. Ante amlake nehina fik adehina le madreg asa temreng. Do some him that's idik amidara yimrain. Teach I to do thy will, for thou, the I, art my true good, my true God. Ante amlaki nehina, ante the I, male amlaki, my source nehina, for the I be my source. Fik adihin. Fik adih, the I, male will. Fik adihin, le madreg, to do the I's will. Asatemreng. Teach I, and I to do the I will. Kedusa manifest to him. Kedus holy manifest the I spirit, the eyes irid manifest to him, and the eyes Ila irid, the eyes Holy Spirit. That's Idik in righteous midar in a righteous land. Yimrang, and lead I into the land of uprightness, a land of righteousness. Kuter Asara and verse 11. Abetu Selesime Yao Adargang. That's it. Him Nasina Kamekrawa out at quicken I, cause I to live, to lively up myself, cause I to live. Abetu Selesime, for thy name's sake, for the eyes male name's sake. Abetu Selesime Yao Adargang. Yao Adargang, cause I to live, quicken, cause I to live. Hima, and in the eyes righteousness, the eyes male righteousness. That's it him. That's it him. Nefin, my soul, kamekrawa out, and take my soul, my psyche, out of her trouble, out of her tribulation. For thy righteousness' sake, bring my soul, bring her out of her trouble. That's it. Kehima nesin kamekarawa autat kuter asara hulet. Verse 12. Then hiretehit alatochena demisisacho. Ine bariyahin na nesin yasa chen kuatin hulu atfacho. And of thy mercy, be mehiretih. Telatochin, demisisacho, cut off, destroy, demolish, cut off mine enemies in your mercy. Telatochin, demisisacho. KJV has, and of thy mercy, Bamaringa be mehirete, and in the eyes, male mercy, telatochin, my haters, my enemies, demisisacho, demolish them. Cut them off, destroy them. Inne, I, Bariyah, Nena, I, the eyes male servant, for I am the eyes male servant. Inne, Bariyah, Nena, Nesin, my soul, my psyche, Yemiyasach, and Kuatin, Hulu, Atfacho, and destroy all them that afflict, that cause anxiety, constraint to my psyche, Nesin, Yemiyasach, and Kuatin, Hulu, all them that afflict, that cause distress, anxiety to my soul, atfacho, destroy them. cause them to perish, cause them to be lost. The Mihiretihit, Alatochen, the Mississachio. Ine, Bariahin, Neseni, Miasach, and Quatin, Hulu, Atafacho, 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 Atafacho.
Bring forth the Bible, bring forth the Bible, bring forth the Bible, bring forth the Bible.
መዝሙር 142 በቅንፍ 143 ልጁ ባሳደደው ጊዜ የዳዊት መዝሙር። አቤቱ ጸሎቴን ስማ፣ በእውነትህ ልመናዬን አድምጥ፣ በጽድቅህም መልስልኝ። ሕያው ሁሉ በፊትህ ጻድቅ አይደለምና ከባሪያ ጋር ወደ ፍርድ አትግባ። ጠላት ነፍሴን አሳዷታል፣ ሕይወቴንም በምድር ውስጥ አጎሳቅሏታል። ቀድሞ እንደሞተ ሰው በጨለማ ኑሮኛል። ነፍሴ በውስጤ ያለቀችብኝ፣ ልቤም በውስጤ ደነገጠብኝ። የቀድሞውን ዘመን አሰብኩ፣ ሥራህንም ሁሉ አሰላሰልኩ፣ የእጅህንም ሥራ ተመለከትኩ። እጆቼን ወደ አንተ ዘረጋሁ፣ ነፍሴም እንደ ምድረ በዳ አንተን ተጠማች። አቤቱ ፈጥነህ ስማኝ፣ ነፍሴ አልቃለች። ፊትህን ከኔ አትመልስ፣ ወደ ጉድጓድም እንደሚወርዱ አልሁን። አንተን ታምኛለሁና በማለዳ ምሕረትህን አሰማኝ። አቤቱ ነፍሴን ወደ አንተ አንስቻለሁና የሚሄድበትንም መንገድ አስታውቀኝ። አቤቱ ወደ አንተ ተማጽኛለሁና ከጠላቶቼ አድነኝ። አንተ አምላኬ ነህና ፈቃድህን ለማድረግ አስተምረኝ። ቅዱስ መንፈስህም በጽድቅ ምድር ይምራኝ። አቤቱ ስለ ስምህ ሕያው አድርገኝ፣ በጽድቅህም ነፍሴን ከመከራው አውጣት። በምህረትህ ጠላቶቼን ደምስሳቸው። እኔ ባሪያህ ነኝና ነፍሴን የሚያስጨንቋትን ሁሉ አጥፋቸው።
Bring forth the Bible, bring forth the Bible, bring forth the Bible, bring forth the Bible, bring forth the Bible.
So people still searching for this truth here, which this reggae music, bring Christ to them, and the only purpose it serves is to tell the people about Rastafari.
But my hands alone can carry I to Zion.
Psalm 143. Hear my prayer, O Lord, give ear to my supplications. In thy faithfulness answer me, and in thy righteousness, and enter not into judgment with thy servant. For in thy sight shall no man living be justified. For the enemy hath persecuted my soul. He hath smitten my life down to the ground. He hath made me to dwell in darkness as those that have been long dead. Therefore is my spirit overwhelmed within me. My heart within me is desolate. I remember the days of old. I meditate on all thy works. I muse on the work of thy hands. I stretch forth my hands unto thee. My soul thirsteth after thee as a thirsty land. Selah. Hear me speedily, O Lord. My spirit faileth. Hide not thy face from me, lest I be like unto them that go down into the pit. Cause me to hear thy loving kindness in the morning, for in thee do I trust. Cause me to know the way wherein I should walk, for I lift up my soul unto thee. Deliver me, O Lord, from mine enemies. I flee unto thee to hide me. Teach me to do thy will, for thou art my God. Thy spirit is good. Lead me into the land of uprightness. Quicken me, O Lord, for thy name's sake. For thy righteousness' sake, bring my soul out of trouble. And of thy mercy, cut off mine enemies, and destroy all them that afflict my soul. For I am thy servant, thy servant, thy servant, thy servant, thy servant, thy
To go down, I and I down in a Babylon.
boy, everything takes time.
Rastafari. Abba Gada Hawa Taya Kaya Mana Saifa Tala Warashata. Ha ha ha.
My evil boy, everything takes time. Bring forth the Bible. Bring forth the Bible. Bring forth the Bible.
Shalom, Chaverim. Today's daily psalm, Mizmor Kof, Mim Gimel, Mizmor Kof, Mem Gamel. Here. A midrash on today's daily psalm, Mizmor Kof, Mim Gimel, Mizmor Kof, Mem Gamel, Psalm 143. Shalom, Chaverim. Today's daily psalm, Mizmor Kof, Mim Gimel, Mizmor Kof, Mem Gamel. Here. A midrash on today's daily psalm, Mizmor Kof Mim Gimel, Mizmor Kof Mem Gamel, Psalm 143, Psalm CXLII. Here, Midrash on today's daily psalm, Mizmor Kof Mim Gimel, Kof Mem Gamel, Mizmor LeDavid, Yahuwah Shema'a Tifilati, Ha'azina Al Tachnunai, Be Emunatecha Eneni, Bez Idkatecha, We Al Tabo, Be Mishpata, Eta Avdeka, Ki Lo Yitzedaka Lefaneka Kol Chai. Here, today's daily psalm, Psalm 143, Hebraically verses 1 to 2. A psalm of David. O Lord, hear my prayer, give ear to my supplications. In thy faithfulness answer me, and in thy righteousness, and enter not into judgment with thy servant. For in thy sight shall no man living be justified. Here. Mizmor LeDavid, a psalm of David. Yahuwah Shema'a Tifilati. Oh, he who be, oh Jehovah, hear my prayer. Yahuwah Shema'a Tifilati. Ha'azina al Tachnunai. Give ear, Ha'azina. Give ear, broaden the ear, give ear to my supplications. Ha'azina il tachnunai. Ha'azina il tachnunai. Be'emunatecha eneni. Be'tzidkatecha. In thy faithfulness. Be'emunatecha. Be'emunatecha. In thy faithfulness. Answer. Eneni. Answer I, and in thy righteousness, be'tzidkatecha, be'emunatecha, eneni, be'tzidkatecha, we'al tabo, be'mishpata, et avdeka, and enter not, we'al tabo, and enter not into judgment, we'al tabo, the mishpat, into mishpat, into judgment. Eta avdeka, with thy servant. We al tavo, the mishpata eta avdeka. Ki lo yitzedaka, le faneka kol chai. For in thy sight shall no man living be justified. Ki lo yitzedak, for not to be justified. Ki lo yitzdak, le faneka, in the eyesight, in the eye presence, in the eye face, le faneka, call all chai, all living, call chai. Ki lo yitzdak, le faneka, call chai. Mizmor LeDavid, Yahuwah Shema'a Tifilati, Ha'azina illa Tachnunai, Be'emunatecha eneni, Be'tzidkatecha, We'al tavo b'mishpata et avdeka, Ki lo yitzdaka lefaneka kol chai. Solomon Shlomo said, a king that sitteth on the throne of judgment scattereth away all evil with his eyes. Who can say, I have made my heart clean, I am pure from my sin? Here, Mishle Shlomo, Proverbs 20, verses 8 to 9. Melech Yoshev al Kisei Din, Mi Zareh Re Ainav Kol Ra'a. Mi Yomar Zikiti libi. Taharti me khatati. Here, Mishle Shlomo, here from the Mashal, the Proverbs, the parables. Here, allegories of Shlomo, of Solomon. Proverbs chapter 20 here, verse 8. Melech Yoshev, all kisei din, a king that sitteth on the throne of judgment. Melech Yoshev, all kisei din, scattereth away all evil with his eyes. Mizareh, bi'aynayo, called ra'ah. Mizareh, scattereth bi'aynayo, with his eyes called ra'ah. All evil called ra'ah. Mi Yomar, who can say? Me, who? Yomar, who can say? Me, Yomar. Zikiti libi, I have made my heart clean. Zikiti libi, I have made my heart clean. Taharti, I am pure. Taharti, I am pure. Me khatati, from my sin, from my uckery, from my lack. Me khatati. Mi Yomar, zikiti libi. Taharti, me khatati. On the day of judgment, who? On the day of judgment, can any man say, I am pure from my sin? On the day of judgment, can any man say, Taharti me khatati, I am pure from my uckery, fuckery, I am pure from my sin. Taharti me khatati, Taharti, I am pure, I am clean, I am pure. Taharti me from khatati, from my uckery, my forfeiture, my lack. So, on the day of judgment, can any man say, Taharti me khatati? No man will be able to stand firm. Thus, like this, scripture says, Yahweh will suddenly come to his temple, but who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? Here, Malachi, chapter 3, focus verse 2, but here, full of verse 1 and verse 2. Himni sholeach Malachi, ua fina dereka lefanai, ua fitoma yavo illa hekalo ha'adon, asher ratema me'vakshim, ua malaka habrit, asher ratema chefetzim, hine va amar Yahuwah tzvaot. Here, full of verse 1, behold, I send my messenger. Hini asholeach Malachi. Behold, I send Malachi, my messenger, my angel, my messenger, Malachi. Hini sholeach Malachi, and he shall clear the way before me. Fina dereka lefanai, he shall clear the way before me, before my face. Fina dereka lefanai, and the Lord, whom y'all seek. Fitom yavo illa hekalo, will suddenly come to his temple. Ha-adon, the sovereign. The Adon. Ha-adawan, ha-adon, the sovereign. Ha-adon. Asher ratem mevakshim, whom asher y'all atem mevakshim, whom y'all seek. Afitom yavo illa hekalo. Ha-adon, asher ratem mevakshim, and the messenger of the covenant, malak habrit, and the malak, the messenger, the angel, malak habrit, of the brit, of the covenant, whom y'all delight in. Behold, he cometh. Asher ratem chafetzim, the one in whom chafetzim, whom atem, whom y'all, you all, chafetzim, delight in. Behold, hine ba, he cometh. Hine ba, hine, look and see. Ba, he cometh. Amar Yahuwah Tzevaot, saith Amar Yahuwah, he who be, we be, Tzevaot, of armies of hosts. Hini esholeach Malachi, fina dereka lefanai. Fitoma yavo ella hekalo, ha'adon asher ratem mevakashim, malaka habrita, asher ratem chafetzim, hineva amar Yahuwah Tzevaot. Here, Malachi, here, verse 2. Mikalkela את היום הבא, ומי העומד בהראותו. Here. But who may abide the day of his coming? Me and who? Me, Mikalkel, who may abide at the yom, the day, bo, of his coming. Me, Mikalkel, at the yom, bo, and who, me, and who shall stand? Me ha-omed. Me ha-omed, who shall stand? Beheraoto, when he appeareth, when he is visible, when he is seeable, when he appeareth. Miya mikalkel et yom bo. Miya heraoto. That is to say, that is, who will be able to stand firm on the day of judgment? As Jeremiah, Ermias, as Jeremiah said, thus saith the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, not of peace, ask and travail with child. Wherefore, why do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces shall be turned into paleness? Here, Jeremiah, Jeremiah 30. Shaluna, im yoled, zakar, madua raiti kol gavar, yadav Allah, chilatava, ka yoleda, ze nehefku kol panim, li yerakon. Here. Ask y'all now and see. Shaluna. Ask y'all now. Ask y'all now. Shaluna. And reu. And see y'all. Shaluna. Whether a man doth travail with child. Im yoled zakar. Whether if a man doth travail with child. Im yoled zakar, if a male doth zakar, if a male doth travail with child. Im yoled zakar, wherefore? Madua, wherefore? Why? Make me know. Madua. Raiti, I see. Call geber. Wherefore? Why? Cause me to know. Madua raiti. Why is it that I see? Madua raiti. Call gever. All gever. Every man. All gever. Every man. That is to say, like every mighty man. All mighty man. All gever. Call gever. Madua raiti. Call gever. Wherefore do I see every man, every mighty man, like to say every warrior, every mighty man? Yadav Allah chilatava. Ka yoleda. Yadav or Yadayo, his hands all upon Chilatzayo, on his loins, up on his loins, the loins, like the small of the back, the loins, every man, his hands on his loins. Yadayo Allah Chilatzayo ka yoleda, as a woman, ka, like yoleda, as a woman with child. Ka yoleda, as a woman in travail. Ka, like as yoleda. Ka yoleda, as a woman in travail, as a woman with child. We nehefku kol panim le yerakon, and all faces kol panim are turned. We nehefku. We nehefku are turned. Kol panim, all faces. All countenances, all faces, all perception, le yarakon, into paleness. Full of Jeremiah, Jeremiah. Shaluna, ima yoled zakar, madua raiti kol gever, yadayo Allah chlatz'ayo yoleda, when have ku kol panim le yarakon. On the day, there will be no man with. Every face will turn pale. Even Abraham's, because Ishmael, even Yitzhak, because of Esau, and even the heavenly hosts, because of Yisrael. For it is said, all faces shall be turned into paleness. ונהפכו כל פנים לירקון, ונהפכו כל הפנים לירקון. Here, Midrash notes, here it says, on the day of judgment, there will be no man with serene face. Every face will turn pale. Now, here, from this particular verse right here in Jeremiah, it reads, ונהפכו כל פנים לירקון, ירקון. All faces called panim are turned ונהפכו Yarakon, into paleness. Here, bringing out this sense, there's another word also in the Hebrew, but here in Jeremiah, where it says, ask y'all now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore, why, Madua, Raiti, why do I see Raiti, all man? Here we have the Geber. The Geber is the strong man. Here is the Hebrew also for the warrior, emphasizing strength or ability to fight. So here, in the phrase where it reads, wherefore do I see every man, Madua, why, or make me know why, what to know, cause me to know why I see, Madua, Araiti, I see, call Geber, ancient pointing called Geber, modern Hebrew called Geber. Now the Geber or the Geber is the man, it translates man, but it's a strong man. It's a warrior. Here we have the Hebrew, the H1397, the Geber, the warrior. Why do I see all warriors, all valiant man, all Geber, called Geber? Yadayo, Allah, Chnatzayo, Ka Yoleda, like a Yoleda. Yoleda, a woman with child, or in the old King Jamesian, the older translations, as a woman in travail. Yoleda, a woman with child. That's why it asks, if Yoled, im Yoled Zakar, whether a man asks and see whether a man or a male Zakar, im Yoled Zakar, whether a man travail with child, whether a man gives birth. Right? So when it says on the day of judgment, there will be no man with serene face. Every face will turn pale. It says even Abraham's because of Yishmael, even Yitzhak, even Isaac's face because of Esau, even the heavenly host. Now here there's a reference to Sanhedrin 98 and B. There's a reference when it mentions even the heavenly host because of Yisrael, because of Israel. For it is said, all faces shall be turned into paleness. Where Nehefku are called panim le Yerakon. So the Yerakon turned, hafak, to turn, to overthrow, to turn. Then Nehefku will be changed. The idea, the implication would be changed, turned into paleness. Le Yerakon. What is Yerakon? Here we have the H3420, Yerakon. The BDB, the Browns Drivers Briggs definition, bringing out this Hebraic word, this Hebrew word, Yerakon, mildew, the sense of mildew, paleness, lividness, the sense of mildew, the sense of rust, the sense of paleness. Here, Yerakon. Now, in Strong's, it's brought out as paleness. Whether it's persons, it could be paleness, Yerakon, of persons from fright, or of plants, from drought, or from drought. So the sense of, like in plants, is like mildew. In the sense of persons, brought out as paleness from fright. Here, the root is the H3418, right, of Yerakon, from Yerek. What is Yerek? Yerek, the BDB, Brown Drivers Briggs, brings out greenness, as in sense of green plants, as a sense of greenery, right, in the sense of vacuity, the vacuity of color, like losing color in that sense, right? Properly, the pallor. That is, the Yerek is the yellowish green. So not the green, but the yellowish green of young and sickly vegetation. Concretely, it's like verdure. That is like the green or the vegetation, but the turning of that color, right? And then we have from Yerek, getting to the root of Yerek, the H3417, we have Yarak. And here we get to the root of Yerakon. The Yarak is to spit, right? To spit, the idea of spit. So we have the sense of, in plants, the color, the changing of the color, right, of the green plants, the yellowishness. And then in the sense of persons, it's like they losing color, as it were. They're turning pale, like losing melanin, right? Or like from a living person to when like a dead body loses that color. It loses the color, turn to paleness. Thus here in Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 6, where it reads right here, when have cool call up panim le yarakon, and all faces are changed, are turned into paleness. So the full of the verse here from Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 6, we have the gestures that the mighty men, the Gever, right? The Gever, not just the Adam or Ish, but we have the sense of the warrior. So when it says, why do I see every man, the Hebrew sense is, why do I see every warrior, every strong man making the gestures, right? Displaying the gestures in their anguish. And these gestures that the mighty men, the strong men, the warriors are displaying in their anguish are comparable with the throes of a woman, with child of a woman, more better in childbirth, in giving birth. So the same gestures that the woman would make when bringing forth a child in childbirth, in travail, are the same gestures right here that the prophet Jeremiah is saying, why am I seeing, through the spirit of HaKadosh, he's saying, Baruch, he's saying, why do I see every mighty man? I see every man, every strong man, every warrior acting like they are giving birth, like a woman in travail. Accordingly, David said to Hael, said to the Almighty, to the power, because of the day of judgment, I entreat thee, the eye. Behold, I beseech, I beg the eye to answer me, to answer I, and show mercy to me. Hence, hear, even today's psalm, he said, hear my prayer, give ear to my supplications. Here today's psalm, Mizmor Kof Mim Gimel, Kof Mim Gamel, Mizmor LeDavid, Yahuwah Shema'a, Tifilati, Ha'azina Ella Tachnunai. Oh, he who be Yahweh, Shema, Tifilati, hear my tefillah, Tifilati, hear my prayer, give ear, Ha'azina, brought in the ear, Ha'azina, Ella Tachnunai, El tu Tachnunai, to my supplications. If thou showest no mercy to me, how can one stand firm? This is to say, if thou, the I, Yahuwah, showest no mercy to me, showest no mercy to I, how can one stand firm? So, when Job prayed, even in Job chapter 14, verse 13, he said, oh, that thou wouldest hide me in the nether world. Oh, that thou wouldest hide me in the nether world. Mi ten bishola tatapineni. Here, Job chapter 14 here, first part of verse 13. Oh, that thou wouldest hide me in the netherworld, or be Sheol, and Sheol in the netherworld, the underworld, the Sheol, the Tuat, the Da'at, the underworld, often called by the Greeks, the Hades, the Sheol, by the ancient Kamitiu, the Mitzrayim, the Tuat, the Duat, the hell, the Hades, the Duat, the underworld. Here, Job says, me, who, yitain, who will give? Who will give? This is the idea speaking directly, like, who will give? Oh, that thou, here the Hebrew, me, who, yitain, who to give? Be Sheol, in Sheol, in the nether world, tatapineni, ani, tatapineni. Oh, that you will hide me in the sense of like treasure me up, even treasure me up in the nether world. There appears here in this impassioned appeal some groping towards the hope, the expectation of a life, a liberty beyond. This is Job right here. Job sees that his well-being, right, is degenerating, right, and he is dying. He's on the way to the underworld, to the Sheol, the Duat, the proverbial quote Hades, so to speak, the Hebrew Hades. And here he's saying, me yatain, who will give? Oh, if thou give, but who? If not you, then who? Me yatain, be Sheol, in Sheol, tatzapineni, to tzafan, to treasure, right, in the sense of hide me. So there appears in this impassioned appeal some groping towards a life, towards a hope of a life beyond the present circumstances. The thought strikes him that there is a possibility of another fate, than that of eternally abiding in the underworld, in the Sheol, Hebraically the Sheol, Kemetically the Duat, right? According to the Greeks, the Hades, or pseudonymously the hell, the underworld. So the thought is striking him, Eob, that there is a possibility of another fate than that of eternally abiding in Sheol. Perhaps he would remain there for a set time and then be remembered by Ha Elohim, Ha Elohim, by Shaddai, by the Almighty. Here. Job prayed, oh, that thou wouldest hide me in the nether world. Mi yetena bi Sheol, tatzapine ni, tatzapine ani. Hakadosh, Baruchu, the Holy One, blessed be he, asked, forever, Selah, la netzach, forever. Job replied, until judgment will have passed, until indignation will have passed, until wrath will have passed, until thy wrath be past. Pastereni adashuv apecha, that thou wouldest keep me secret until thy wrath be past. Ad shuv apecha, ad until shuv turned, apecha thy wrath, until thy wrath be past, until thy wrath be turned. Ad shuv apecha. Similarly, David said, enter not into judgment with thy servant, for in thy sight shall no man living be justified. And enter not ve'al tavo b'mishpata et abdeka, and enter not into judgment with thy servant. Ve'al tavo b'mishpata et abdeka, with abdeka, with thy abed, with thy servant. For in thy sight shall no man living be justified, for not justified in thy sight all living. For not justified in thy sight all living. Here the Hebraic order of words. Ki loa yitzdaka le faneka, call high, all living, call high. So it does not read no man, right? It doesn't read no man. It actually reads all living, call all high, all living, called high. And the order of words is not for in thy sight shall no man living be justified. Hebraically is for not justified in thy sight. Ki lo yitzdak le faneka, all living, call high, all living, call high. That is to say, David was asking Hakadosh, Baruchu, the Holy One, blessed be he, wilt thou bring me to enter into judgment with thee, with the eye? How is a servant to enter into judgment with his master? How is a servant to enter into judgment with his master? Similarly, scripture says, even of Eob, even of Job, in Job chapter 10, verse 15, if I be righteous, yet will I not lift up my head. If I be righteous, tzadakati, with and tzadakati. And if I be tzadakati, if I be righteous, lo esa, not to lift up roshi, yet shall I not lift up my head. With tzadakati, lo esa roshi, if I be righteous, yet shall I not lift up my head. With tzadakati, lo esa roshi. Lama lo? Why not? Lama lo? Because every man is a servant to thee, to the eye, and everything he owns belongs to his master. Again, scripture says, only do not two things to me, then will I not hide myself from thee, from the eye. Withdraw thy hand far from me, and let not thy terror make me afraid. Here, Eob. Here, Job. Job chapter 13, verses 20 to 21. Here, Eob. Job chapter 13, verses 20 and 21. Akstaim alat asa imadi aza mi panecha loa esatir kapecha me alaya harhata ve'ematecha ala te vaitani. Only do not two things to me. Ak shtaim, ak shitayim, Ak Shetayim, or modern Hebrew Ak Shtayim. Only to say only two things. Ak Shtayim, Ak Shetayim, Allah Ta'as, Imadi. Do not two things to me. Allah Ta'as. Don't do Al Ta'as. Don't do Al Ta'as. Don't do Imadi. To me, with me. Only do not two things to me. Only do not two things with me. Aka Shetayim, Allah Ta'asa, Imadi. Then will I not hide myself from thee. As mi panecha, as mi paneka, from thy face, me from paneka, as then from thy face, as mi paneka, lo esatir, lo not no esatir, not hiding, I will not hide, lo esatir, as mi paneka, lo esatir. So he says here in verse 20, only do not two things to me with me. Then will I not hide myself from the azmi panika lo esatir. And here the two things. Kapeka me alaya harhaka. Withdraw thy hand far from me. He says kapeka, thy hand, like kap, like thy palm. Kapeka, the eye, male hand, may alai, from above I, from I, to say may, from alai, from upon I, thy hand, thy like palm, thy hand, from upon I, harhak, to be far, harhak. Don't make your right hand far from me, your palm, your hand, kapeka, may alai, from above I, harhak. Don't withdraw, make it far from I, first thing. Secondarily, there, emateka, where and emateka, emateka, thy terror, thy emat, where emateka, Allah, te va etani, Allah te va etani, and make not thy terror, make me afraid. Don't make thy emat, make I afraid. Here. And also Eob and Job also says, even in Job chapter 10, verses 9 to 12, Job says, remember, I beseech thee, that thou hast fashioned me as clay, and wilt thou bring me into dust again? Hast thou not poured me out as milk, and curdled me like cheese? Thou hast clothed me with skin and flesh, and knit me together with bones and sinews. Thou hast granted me life and favor, and thy providence hath preserved my spirit. Thy providence, Provida, has preserved my irit. Here, Eob chapter 10, here, verse 9. Zikarna, kia, ka homera, asitani, we illa afara, te shiveni. Remember, zikarna, please remember, I beseech thee, remember, please, zikarna, remember, please, zikarna ki, ka homera, asitani, remember, please remember that thou hast fashioned me, have fashioned I as clay. Ki, for, ka, homer, like clay, asitani, like clay you have fashioned, you have made, ani. Zekarna, ki, ka, homer, asitani. And wilt thou bring me into dust again? Where? Illa afara, te shiveni. Tishibe ani, will thou bring ani, I, into where illa afar, into the afar, wilt thou return I to the afar again, where il afar, tishibeni. Verse 10, hast thou not poured me out as milk, and curdled me as cheese? Hello, ka halav, tatikeni. Where kagebina takapieni, hast thou not poured me out like milk? Hello, is it not? Hello, is it not? Hello, is it not? Ka halav, milk, halav, ka, like halav, milk, tatikeni, poured me out, and curdled. With gabina, like cheese, like the cheese, gabina or gavina, gavina, modern Hebrew, with gabina, like cheese, Takapieni, takapieni, curdled eye. Verse 11. Thou hast clothed me with skin and flesh. Thou hast clothed me with skin and flesh. Or basara tala bisheni, and knit me together with bones and sinews. Uava its amot. Uba its amot, bones where gidim and sinews are. Tisa kikeni. Tisa kikeni has knit. Tisa kikeni has knit. Tis kikeni has knit I. Ora ubasara. Tala bisheni. Uaba at amota wegdima. Tisa kikeni. Verse 12. Wilt thou grant me? Thou hast granted me. Thou hast granted I life and favor. Chayim. Wa chesed, chayim, life. Wa and chesed, and favor, loving kindness. Chesed, chayim, wa chesed, life and loving kindness. Asita, imadi. Asita, you have done. Imadi, you have done with me. So the sense is not so much granted, but doing, you have done with me. Imadi, imadi. Chayim wa chesed asita imadi. And thy providence hath preserved my spirit. Ufa kodateka, and thy fikudat, ufa kodateka, fikudateka, shamra, has preserved, has guarded, has hedged about, shamra ruchi, has preserved ruchi, my spirit, my irit, ruchi. Remember, Zakarna kiaka chomera asetani wela afara te shibeni. Hello, ka halava tate cheni we kagi bina taka pieni ora ubasara talabisheni uabat amota wegdima tisa kakeni. Chayima wa chesed asita imadia ufa kudateka shamra ruchi. And withal, wilt thou summon me to stand for judgment? And with all of that, wilt thou, the I summon me to stand for judgment? Lama, why? Since man that is born of a woman is of few days and full of trouble, he cometh forth like a flower and withereth. He fleeth also as a shadow and continueth not. And dost thou open thine eyes upon such a one, and bringest me into judgment with thee, with the eye? Here, Job chapter 14, verses 1 to 3. Man that is born of a woman, man, Adam Yulud Isha, Kitzar Yamima Usava Rogez. Man that is born of a woman is of few days and full of trouble. Adam Yulad Isha, Kitzar Yamim, few days, Kitzar Yamim, Usava Rogez, and full of trouble, and satisfied with trouble, and satiated with trouble. Usva rogez. Adama yulad isha kitzar yamim usva rogez. K'tzitza yatza vayimal vayayizrach wa ka'ela zitlo ya emod. He cometh forth like a flower. K'tzitza yatza. He cometh like a flower. He cometh. K'tzitz. He cometh like a flower. K'tzitz. Yatza, he cometh. K'tzitza yatza, vayimal, and yimal, and withereth. K'tzitza yatza, vayimal, vayivrach, and he fleeth, vayivrach katzel, and he fleeth like a tel, like a shadow. Willo ya'emod, and continuous not, and standeth not. Here Hebraically, willo and not ya'emod, and not standing, and he doesn't stand. He's not able to stand. The sense here Hebraically brought out in translation, continue. He cannot stand. He cannot stand firm. In other words, he cannot continue. Because vayibracha katzela willo ya'emod. Verse 3. And dost thou open thine eyes upon such a one, and bringest me into judgment with thee? Af al zeh, pakachta ainaka, with oti tavi b'mishpata imak. And dost thou, the eye, open thine eyes up on such a one? Af al zeh, upon such a one. Af al zeh, pakachta ainaka, pakachta. You opening your eyes, opening, pakachta, pakachta, ainaka, the eye, male eyes, with oti, and me to say with me, and oti, and me, tabi, and bringing me, oti, tabi, v'mishpat, in judgment, v'mishpat, imak. Here, full. Adam yulad isha, ketzar yamim, usev arogez, ketzitza yatza wayamala, wayivrach katzela, hulo yamod, af al zeh, pakachta aineka, ve'oti tabi b'mishpata imak. And Shlomo, and Solomon said, who can say, I have made my heart clean, I am pure from my sin? And Shlomo said, Shlomo said, who can say, mi yomar, who is he who can say, mi yomar, zakiti libi, purified, zakiti libi, purified my heart, I have purified my heart, mi yomar, who can say, zakiti libi, taharti me khatati, I am pure. Taharti, I am pure. Me khatati, from my akari, I am pure. I am purified from my sin. Who can say, mi yomar, zikiti libi, taharti me khatati? So here, this is to say concerning human imperfection. Who can say, me yomar? The implied answer is no one, nobody, no one. In biblical doctrine, Hebraic teaching, it is always assumed that no man is faultless. And this is brought out right here, even in connection with Eov, even in connection with Job. Mi yomar, zikiti libi, taharti me khatati, mi yomar. On the day, what a day. On the day of judgment, no man can declare himself pure because, according to 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 46, there is no man that sinneth not. There is no man that doesn't uck up. There is no man that sinneth not. Here, 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 46, full. Ki ye chet'u alaka, ki ein adam asher lo ye chet'a. Anafta vama, netatama lifneya oyeva, shavuma shovehem, il eret ha oyeva, rechoka o terova. Here, full of verse right here, KJV first. If they sin against thee, for there is no man that sinneth not, and thou be angry with them, and deliver them to the enemy, so that they carry them away captives to the land of the enemy, far or near. Kia yechet'u laka, kia ein adam asher lo yechet'a, we anafta bam, ua netatam lifnei oyeva, we shavum shobehem il eretza ha oyeb, rechoka or Kerova, far or near, the land to the land of the enemy. Il eretza ha oyeba, rechoka, near, far, rechoka, or Kerova, or near. But here, zooming into the first part of the verse right here, Kia ye chet'u alaka, if they sin against thee, against the eye, Kia ye chet'u, ki yechet'u lak, if they sin against the eye, ki, for ein adam, there is no Adam, ki ein adam, there is no Adam, asher who lo yechet'a, ki ein adam, asher lo yechet'a, chet'a, There is no Adam who doesn't uck up. There is not an Adam who does not uck up. There's not a man, common man, all man who does not sin. Ki ein Adam asher lo yechetah. Ki ein Adam asher lo yechetah. And because according to Ecclesiastes, Kohelet the preacher, there is not a righteous man upon earth that doeth good and sinneth not and does not uck up. Ki Adam ein tzadik baretza asher ya'aseh tov v'lo yechetah. There is not a righteous man upon earth. Ki Adam, for Adam, ain, not tzaddik, for Adam, not righteous, ba'aretz, bringing out the Hebrew for Adam, ain, there is not, for Adam, because Adam, there is not tzaddik, righteous, ba'aretz, or bringing out the translative sense, there is not a righteous man upon earth, there is not a righteous Adam, but the Hebrew sense, ki Adam ein tzaddik ba'aretz, for because Adam, there is not tzaddik, righteous, ba'aretz, upon earth, asher who ya'aseh tov, who doeth ya'aseh tov, who doeth good, ya'aseh tov, who doeth tov, tawab, with low, and does not yechetah, and does not uck up. In the sight of Ha Elohim, Elohim, true good, true God, not even the heavens, the Shemayim, are pure. In the sight and the eyes of Elohim, Ha Elohim, not even the stars are pure. For it is said, even here, even in today's Psalm, Mizmor Kof Mim Gimel, Mizmor Kof Mem Gamel, Psalm 143, here in the second verse. In thy sight, no living thing shall be justified. In thy sight, in thy eyes, no living thing shall be justified. Here. Ki lo yitzedaka lit faneka, call chai, all living, call chai, for not justified. Ki lo yitzedaka, in thy face, in thy presence, lit faneka, call all chai, all life, all living. So here the translation in thy sight, no living thing. Call chai, no living shall be justified. What is meant by the words no living thing? What is meant by the words call chai, all living? Call chai. What is meant by the words call chai, no living thing, or all, literally all living, all chai, all life, all living? That in thy sight, li faneka, no living, no thing alive shall be justified, and that only the dead, metim, the mutar and the metim, shall be adjudged pure? Does that mean this, that in thy sight, lit faneka, no living, no thing alive shall be justified, and that only the dead shall be adjudged pure? No. The words here, call chai, they mean that on the day of judgment, even the living things called chai, all living in the heavens, Shemayi, will be not able to justify themselves, lit fanecha, in thy sight, in thy face, in thy presence. Hence, here, it is said, for in thy sight, no living thing shall be justified. Ki lo yitzedaka lit fanecha, call chai.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.